With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
From the north of Spain last week, we come to the north of France this week in a very familiar sight. Le Mans plays host to the GT3 stars and GT3 cars of the Precision Racing League. There's been a big change in the pecking order over the past few days, though. The long straight lines and the slippery speeds of the French countryside mean a season that's been dominated by a Porsche party for the last 8 weeks may just be broken up by some very fast Ferraris tonight. Welcome to round 9 of the PRL GT3 series here in 2023 Season 3, live from the virtual Circuit de la Sarthe. Hi everybody, Joey Tebben here alongside Justin Prince, once again subbing in here on Tuesday night, and late night Hugo Luis is behind the scenes on production duty. Justin, we've got a pair of GT3 races as usual here in the PRL, GT3 Fixed and GT3 Sprint the Open series. And as I mentioned, it's been a Porsche party all season, but those Ferraris have looked very, very fast over the first few days this week.
Yes, indeed. One of the main things we were just discussing before today's action when it comes to this racetrack, the Ferraris on average, depending on the series, up by 1 to 2 seconds per lap. And that's actually very interesting because much of the season, it's been, if you aren't in a Porsche, it's been very tricky to run up front. This is the one outlier you can really argue about this campaign because here's the thing, the Ferrari's always been strong when it comes to straight line speed. And with this track, there's a lot of straightaways and a lot of speed to be had.
And this is the last in the straight line speed festivals of this season. We've had some tracks with very, very long straights. We had Spa, we have Le Mans this week, we had Fuji with no chicane earlier on in the season. But next week, Justin, that season finale at Phillip Island could not be any more different from Le Mans. We go from the longest track on the schedule this week to one of the shortest tracks in the schedule next week. It's kind of amplifying the fact that you need to be strong at every single type of road course in this series, and you need to hope that your car is as strong on every type of track, which the Porsche's been basically all season long.
Yeah, it's been the most consistent car for a reason, especially when it's balanced between speed down the straights, but also its cornering speed. This week has been an exception because it's more so middle of the pack at every single type of series, whether it's fixed, whether it's open. There's been a struggle when it comes to that car at times this week. But now it's the test in the PRL. Can drivers overcome that tonight with so much on the line in the championship?
That championship is still heating up. We've got 2 more rounds to go, including tonight, and the championship is very much within touching distance for a few drivers still. Aero has been the dominant force this season. He's won the most races, and he has absolutely been the fastest driver over the course of the season, but penalty points have been his undoing. An issue at the start at Spa, an issue at the start at Road America has lost him 35 points due to penalties, and he finds himself in a very precarious position because of that. Greg Doucette has not necessarily had the pace to be second in the championship, but he has had the consistency, and that's why he still finds himself in contention for his first championship in the PRL. Ray Dominguez has maybe been the fastest driver in terms of raw speed this season. 4 poles on the docket. He needs a little bit more consistency if he wants to catch Aero Urexoy and those 18 points in the championship. It's Matt Arnold, Eric Kulaga down to the end of the top 5. Steven Martinez has had a great season in 6th. Jared Keane won his first race last week. He still finds himself down in 7th. And then Hamilton, Michael Kulaga, and John T. Jones bring us down to the end of the top 10. The team's championship is well and truly decided. Not necessarily mathematically decided right now. That could happen tonight, but Vulture Motorsports South, 130 points over SGE Esports. They would basically need a triple DNF 2 weeks in a row, I think, to lose this team's championship, and that's not going to happen. They basically have it locked up. Throttle Thursday and Vulture Motorsports North are pretty close, with SRT Esport Green as well in that battle for third. Then Team Beef, E3 Motorsports, We Race Esports, Racing Mate Scuderia, and Loaded Dice Racing down to the end of the top 10. Good to see Loaded Dice Racing up there in the top 10 with some of the bad luck they've had this season. Qualifying currently underway here at Le Mans, but before we can get into the dying minutes of that, we have to thank all the people who make all of this possible. And first and foremost, Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox Sim Racing offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and also get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. The Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products provide incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat with the Butt Kicker. This coverage is also brought to you by Mecha Sim Hardware. Mecha Sim Hardware is a small company from the Czech Republic, and their goal is to produce high-quality sim racing hardware. If you're looking for a high-end pedal set, handbrake, or sequential shifter, visit Mecha Sim Hardware's eShop right now to get you up to speed and check them out. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. And last but not least, it's Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. Thanks to all of those that make everything possible here in the PRL here on RaceSpotTV. And now it's time to put the spotlight on some drivers. I'm almost rendered speechless, Justin. I am so dumbfounded because we have some beautiful throwback liveries on the grid. As always, Vulture Motorsports has gone all out. We've got Aero Urexoy in some different colors in the PRL, but some very familiar colors in terms of history.
Yes, especially when it comes to motorsports history, this facility known for a lot of history. I'll say on that mark just to be safe. But for the most part, though, they always also go full out when it comes to a lot of these schemes. You can see taken towards that 1990s IMSA look almost. The numbered throwback. Their Ford entries, a couple of them also doing the same thing in terms of throwbacks. It's going to be interesting, though, to see if anyone can catch up to Urexoy in terms of pace. He was quicker than anyone else in practice by 9/10 with the draft, but in qualifying, he is still up by a sizable margin, 1.1 seconds. This best lap over the field.
It's the longest lap of the season by far, almost twice as long as any lap that even comes close, whether it's Spa or VIR. This is an immensely long lap time, and Aero Urexoy has been very quick in qualifying this season. Hasn't had as many poles as Ray Dominguez, but has had multiple of them and has the most wins of anybody. And it's an incredible sight to see him up on top. We expected, Justin, the Ferraris to be very strong, and they are definitely stronger than they once were. You see Andre Bonatti up in third, Steven Martinez and Buck Hamilton in the top 10. But all the talk about the dominance over the course of the week in the official races, where the Ferrari has absolutely been the fastest car, the fastest drivers are still sticking with the Porsches and the BMWs, and they're still finding themselves on top.
Yeah, but that's not to say that the Ferrari is the slower car right now. It's more so who's picked up draft, who hasn't picked up draft. After all, a sizable number of Ferraris, at least 4 or 5, did make their way inside the top 10 in final practice, including Michael Kolaga. You also see Martinez into that mix. You also throw other drivers like Andre Bonatti, as you just talked about, who also did well in final practice, just behind Urexoy on the board without draft. That's going to be the major difference, Mark, I think, is going to be when you get out of the draft, who's going to be the faster of the two. It's not going to be easy to do so today, obviously, but that track position is excessively important here with how big the track is, but also how far back you start if you aren't at the point of the field.
Aero Urexoy just went even faster than he already did. A 135 or a 356. If you get your numbers correct there, faster than he once did with a 356.2. Ray Dominguez, like I said, most poles of any driver this season. He's been on pole 4 times, has converted that to a win 3 times, and he's looking for one more through the exit of the final corners here. It's tracking decently well. A 357.3 is a solid lap time for him, but the BMW searching for a few more tenths of a second to beat Michael Fowler, and a full second if he wants to beat Aero Urexoy through the final corners, through the Porsche curves, and into the final chicane. Peter Muller goes up to P2, but what can Ray Dominguez do? No improvement for him, and Bonatti goes up to P2 in the Ferrari.
And that was to be expected when it comes to that pace, as we said, for the Ferrari. Buck Hamilton also has been very solid. Top 10 in final practice. Top 10 so far on the board. Been showing flashes of good speed throughout this campaign. Once again, as we talked about a little bit, Hamilton, I wouldn't be surprised to see up towards the front by the end of the stages, inside the top 5 rather. Top 10 of the point standings entering tonight. See if he can get himself into the 50s in terms of points scored. That requires some luck, though.
There's been some great Ferrari lap times going on there. Bonatti up to second. Dale Peterson in the Ferrari up to P6. That's one of his best runs of the season so far. But Buck Hamilton into the Ford chicanes. The final couple corners of the lap. Can he improve on a 357.9 across the line? What's it going to be for Buck Hamilton? It is an improvement. No, it's not. It looked like it was going to be, and until the dying seconds, 0.3 of a second slower than his best lap time. Jeff Carollo in the Audi hits the wall. Whether he's going to improve or not, it doesn't matter, because he might have just given himself a 0x contact penalty there. I think he's still going to finish the lap just for glory's sake, but I think he may have thrown it away there.
Here's the more interesting part when it comes to the Audi. In terms of the average performance this week, keep in mind that's based on averages of thousands upon thousands of drivers. It's been the slowest car at this racetrack. So that's a major accomplishment, at least for the 52 machine, to be up towards the front in this qualifying. So that's the final driver on track of the session.
Immensely well done by Jeff Carollo to drag that car up there into the top 10. The Mercedes has been somewhat strong this week, so it's interesting to see nobody in the Mercedes this week. Even Pete Mejia, who normally went for the Mercedes last season, still in his familiar Porsche this season down there in P7. Do have to wait a little while for the clock to tick down here, because you do have a very, very long cooldown period here at Le Mans, and Jochen Backer is taking advantage of that. He's got some time left on the board. There's still 3 minutes and 10 seconds until the clock ticks to 0. If Jochen Backer has officially started this lap, which it looks like it has, he might have the chance to finish this one. He's got 3 minutes on the clock.
I don't know if he officially started, because he just came down the front straightaway a few moments ago. Just confirmed, yes, he's just taking practice time. Here's the thing. If he wasn't doing this right now, we'd already be in the race. But I wouldn't be surprised that, again, just trying to get used to the racetrack. He only had 2 laps of practice, so I don't blame him for taking the qualifying time to say, you know what? I want to make sure I get some extra practice. Let's let everybody learn what my racing line is.
I mean, if you've got 4 extra minutes of cooldown, you might as well give it a chance. We might be in danger at the end of this race of intersecting with the start of the GT3 sprint race, so we'll see how that timing works out, or see if the the drivers of this series are going to get a little bit extra practice here. Still 2 minutes 30 on the clock. I'm watching the clock tick down on my other screen. He's going to have time to make it back to the line. The lap just isn't going to count, but he is going to get himself some good TV time, and critically, he's going to get himself some more practice here, which is always important here at Le Mans. It's a track that a lot of drivers have a lot of experience at with 24-hour and shorter endurance races here on iRacing, but it's a track that's so difficult to master because it is so long, because there are so many corners. It's easy to improve every single time you go around this place in qualifying.
In the most sense, straight, obviously the best chance to make passes, but also save gas. But in terms of those mistake areas, Indianapolis, that run up there, if you don't make the pass, there have been several times you've seen drivers miss the corner, slam into the wall, into the sand trap, or not really catch drivers off guard, it seems, because they either slip into the grass on the left side with the tires on the entry, or they go wide on the exit, and you end up having a potential spin around or stack up. You also take into account that run through the Porsche curbs. That's a terrible place to race traffic, mind you, and a few close calls, especially as of late in the league scene, come into play there when it comes to how difficult it is to go there side by side, let alone single file.
Listening to the tones of the Porsche here down the second longest straight, basically, after the Mulsanne there, coming into, or after Arnage rather, then coming into the Porsche curves here. He's going to fling it into the right-hander here, all the way to the left on entry, hard on the brakes, then flings it into the first of the Porsche curves, and it essentially becomes a street circuit here. It's always a debate at Le Mans. Is it a street circuit technically? It pretty much is, even though half of it is a permanent circuit. But ironically, the part that's a permanent circuit feels the most like a street circuit because the walls are so close to the outside, there's so little runoff through there, that eventually you come here into the asphalt sea of the Corvette curves and the Ford chicanes. Hard on the brakes here for the first of the Ford chicanes, then throw it into the left-hander and basically flail around until the final quarter and see if you can find any time. We know Joachim Backer's not on the clock here, but that's a full practice lap at Le Mans, Justin, and that is going to be very important for him as he tries to move his way forward once the race comes around.
Yeah, that's going to be very tricky. After all, he starts just about dead in the middle of the pack, 19th position. Looks like we're just about set to go.
TikTok, it's grid o'clock. Arrow Urexoy on pole once again this season, the championship leader, the driver who has the most race wins. He's going to start at the head of the field once more. It's his 4th pole this season. That actually ties him with Ray Dominguez, and that is a great statistic for a car with a very, very new paint scheme. Andre Bonatti in the fast Ferrari starts alongside him. Look for him in those opening laps to take advantage of that straight line speed and hope he doesn't get swallowed up by a pair of Porsches. It's Peter Mahler and Michael Fowler. Ray Dominguez, the fastest guy all season, starts in 5th alongside Dale Peterson with his best run of the season in qualifying. Pete Mejia's Porsche starts 7th alongside Jeff Carollo, dragging the Audi up into the top 10. Then it's Steven Martinez and Buck Hamilton in row number 5. It's a pair of SRT Esport Porsches. Last week's winner, Jared Keane, starts alongside season debutant Ryan Miller, making his first start of the season tonight. Brett Punkari in the Princess Peach BMW starts alongside Michael Kulaga, ahead of his brother Eric Kulaga in yet another familiar livery from seasons past, or from years past. Sully Saad starts alongside him, and then it's John Jones and Andrew Vanaro in some bright blue Ferraris and Porsches. Joachim Backer got some great TV time there. Not a great starting position for him, though, in 19th alongside Reagan Chandler. Sean Mulholland, Nicholas Caranges make up row number 11. And it's Waldo Walden and the seemingly Gulf-liveried Felix Feliz on row number 12. Glenn Vanko starts alongside Matt Schlosser, Chet Miller, Dallas Sullivan down to 28th. Rodrigo Morales and Jason Bridges make up the top 30, but the hits keep on coming. It's a big field tonight. 31st, David Morse, and then you've got some drivers who are unable to qualify. Matt Arnold, a race winner this season, no qualifying lap time for him, nor for Ryan Chandler. RaceSpot's own Ewan O'Leary, deliberately not qualifying as he has been all season long. And then second in the championship, Greg Doucette. He's a long way from second. He's going to start shotgun on the field, 35th place, Ewan. He's got a lot of work to do if he wants to keep his championship hopes alive.
Yeah, this could be very tricky if you're towards the back of the field here, especially with Doucette. Doucette not setting a lap time down in that entire qualifying session. It's absolutely terrible at this point. But, first of all, I'm not Ewan, I'm Justin. Second, Ewan has to be amongst those who has to learn how to be starting in the middle of the pack. If you want my honest opinion, Joey, since we talked about that earlier.
And I do have my excuse, Justin. I was with Ewan last night, so I'm still in Ewan mode. That's what I get. But you have full permission to call me Arjuna from now on.
Okay, sure thing, Arjuna.
Of course.
But in all seriousness here, Urexoi at this point going to be very tricky to stop because he's so consistent in the corners, and he's been that way just about a majority of the season. It's the matter, though, who is able to take advantage of the draft the most to be able to get him uncomfortable, pressurize him, keep him out for the race, like force him to be on the defensive, to try and force him into trouble and mistakes. That's not going to be easy tonight. But if anyone wants a shot at winning at this racetrack, they have to do it. They only have about 8 or 9 laps on the estimated lap total tonight.
It's ironic. It's one of the shortest races in terms of laps, but it's going to feel like one of the longest races in terms of the toll taken on these drivers. It is known for being one of the most difficult tracks in the world. That's why it's so incredible when you do finally win a race at this place, and that is why everyone has circled this race this season as a race for maybe a little bit of chaos and maybe a race for somebody new to win. But Justin, we've got a few moments here before they come through the Ford chicanes and get us started here. Who's going to win this race? Is it going to be a Ferrari, or is Urexoi going to hang on?
That's difficult to say because I like Urexoi because of the consistency. To be able to run underneath those jets, he seems to find a way to have the after jets in the corners. But in my honest opinion, I see a Ferrari come to a front. Benetti's in a good spot. Here we go.
Here we go. The green flag flies very, very early, and it's a great start for Errol Urexoi. He takes us to green at Le Mans, and the field files through the Ford chicanes to get us going here. Andre Bonatti caught napping just a little bit. He needs to stick as close as he can to Urexoi to use that Ferrari. Everybody else filing through in the back. It's always a difficult place to start through those Ford chicanes. Looks like everybody's through cleanly, though. Andre Bonatti hangs on to second. Peter Mahler in that green Porsche chasing him down. It's been a clean start so far, Justin. Everybody's trying to get their rhythm here as we file down the hill for the first time.
Honestly, the timing for Urexoi couldn't have been any better because he's almost broken the draft because he started that in the middle of the chicanes rather than waiting for the straightaway in turn, because everyone else was having to sort out, do we go single file or side by side? Everybody fourth on back has lost the touch to the leaders. That is a perfect start for the 63. Not so much for everyone else who may be thinking otherwise.
But as we file onto the Mulsanne straight for the first time, look at Andre Bonatti, and most importantly, look at that ticker on the left side of your screen. The gap is coming down, not as quickly as it might otherwise, but it's coming down without the draft, and that tells you how fast that Ferrari is. If Bonatti can get that little bit closer, he's got a shot here, but Ray Dominguez in the BMW, the second fastest of the cars in the straight line, jumps Michael Fowler into the first chicane.
Already having to close up more than a second, if not 2 seconds, of the rate things are going here. And it's going to be tricky for others like Keane. They do not want to settle on in, stay in the line. They want to try and battle it out. They've now lost Martinez and company with this fight, and here comes Pancari trying to find a way around in the Peach Machine.
We ride on board with Brett Pancari, a podium sitter earlier this season in round number 5, looking for another great result, but he finds himself an unlucky 13th, and he finds himself with a wall of cars in front of him. Buck Hamilton trying to use the straight line speed of that Mercedes to get by, and he does stay ahead of Jared Keane, who stays ahead of his teammate Ryan Miller, and everybody starts to go a little bit train mode, except at the back of the field where we see Ewan O'Leary in that very, very bright red and blue BMW. He's going to get to the outside of Dallas Sullivan and almost make contact on the exit of the second chicane.
That was a bit of a close call there, to say the least, though, but Ewan doing well at the back of the field, up 6. We're not even a quarter of the way, if not halfway to the racetrack just about. The main thing, though, is that draft effect we just talked about. Look at that top pylon. Urexoi had that big advantage because of the corners. That straight-line speed is going to be the major beneficial part of anybody else within his wake, though.
And look how close Bonatti is. In that long back stretch, he's closed down a second of a gap, and Andre Bonatti gets to the outside of Errol Urexoi. Coming into Indianapolis for the first time, Andre Bonatti has taken the race lead over Errol Urexoi. A second gap brought down in almost half a lap. That's the power of the Ferrari, and Andre Bonatti leads for the first time this season.
I wouldn't be surprised to see that swap several times, though, Joey, because that draft effect just mentioned. You can be great in the corners, but it's so difficult to break away if you're within a second or 2 seconds here at this racetrack. The main key point of that, everyone else fourth on back can't close. If anything, they're equalizing to this entire lead group despite the fact they got a bigger train.
Through the Porsche curves for the first time. These are critical moments. The tires still not as heated up as they might be otherwise, and the Porsche's been known to be a little bit unstable this week, especially through the high-speed corners. Urexoy's got to hang on here, make sure he doesn't make any mistakes early on, and stick as close to the back of Bonatti as he can. He's doing a great job of doing that so far. Bonatti stretching the limits of the track limits a little bit more than Urexoy is, and Errol might actually get a chance here. He's got a great exit as he peek a nose to the inside into the Ford chicanes. He does not, smartly backs out of it, and Andre Bonatti is going to get to lead his first lap this season.
And don't look now, Ray Dominguez may have just gotten enough of the toe there in that final sector to get himself up to the lead pack. He got within less than 2 seconds, and then all of a sudden the pace went from equalizing to pulling up. So that's going to be a major number to think about here at this racetrack. Usually that's a little bit more of a tighter draft effect when it comes to this car type.
And we've got trouble for Jared Keane a little bit further back. We'll see what happened to him when we can, but we've got to stay up front because Aero Urexoy and Andre Bonatti have been throwing the kitchen sink at each other for the first half of this lap. Urexoy trying to stick as close as possible to give us the first real test of that Porsche's straight line speed. Can it stick with the Ferrari, even with the draft? Well, we're about to get that answer right now. Through Tertre Rouge for the second time. Urexoy in the negatives this time compared to lap 1, but the chase is on. And we watch the ticker, we watch the gap. How fast can the Porsche be in a straight line?
Yeah, right now looking at the speed differential, that draft again, very beneficial, at least a couple miles an hour quicker with the toe. But the major thing I've noticed when it comes to over the years of this racetrack, you can have that speed, but a lot of these cases when you go down the most end straight to the chicanes, may as well save. Urexoy really backed it down there, if you noticed, before even hitting the braking mark, maybe playing with the clutch.
Maybe. We do have to think about fuel saving here, as we do in every single PRL GT3 fixed race. Fuel saving and a pit stop is not required by the rules of the series. A pit stop is required by the laws of physics, though. Even with a very, very long lap, a short amount of laps, you are going to have to pit at least once in this race to take fuel. And everybody's going to be thinking about that in this lead train. Can I save enough fuel to make the jump in the pit stop if it's going to be difficult on track? Urexoy and Mahler and even Ray Dominguez in 4th might be thinking about that already. Sully Saad down in 14th place. He's had a decent start so far, kept himself out of trouble. Currently outrunning Jared Keane, who has gotten into a little bit of trouble himself, trying to move his way into the top 10. Up 2 spots, but it's been a difficult season so far for Sully Saad. And if he can get a top 10 here, maybe put his season on the right track, if he comes back for next season, this could be a great result.
Yeah, DNF last time out, especially putting behind in the point standings outside the top 10 looking in. But honestly, when it comes to his speed overall throughout the campaign or in the past year or so, he's had at least that top 10 speed. There's a reason he's been in championship fights in this car in the calendar year. The thing right now, though, is you can't afford to have troubles now. He's the first of those with 2 races with a DNF or a DNS. And that's a tough pill to swallow when it comes to how tightly packed this season is.
Aren't we always talk about having some straight line speed? Is that Ford GT? And you see it at the head of your screen. Eric Kulaga still piloting his favorite Ford GT. He's not being convinced by any sort of Ferrari propaganda. It might be the fastest car, but Eric Kulaga still sticking with that Ford and doing a very good job of things up there in P13. Was challenging Ryan Miller down the straight, but nothing happened there. We look a little bit further back. The first real crash of the race, Sean Mulholland hard into the wall on the backstretch, and a little bit of an argument in a straight line with a few of the BMWs.
Regan Chandler also having a tilt from that situation, so our first 2 drivers out. Again, that's the difficult part when it comes to traffic, is you basically have to have that sense, and here's Chandler. See, just had to pull off to the side and in turn, out of the race, into the pit lane from it.
Yeah, the way he was shaking the wheel around there made me think maybe some kind of sim racing equipment failure, so unfortunate for Regan Chandler there. It's going to let Ryan Chandler be the winning Chandler tonight, but still a valiant effort. Great qualifying run for Regan, and he'll be back next week at Phillip Island to maybe put a crown on this season. Out of the Ford chicanes this time, Aero Urexoy, again, much better exit than Bonatti. He's faster through a good percentage of the lap, but unfortunately that straight line speed disadvantage is really hurting him. But he's going to try and put an attack on Aero Urexoy here, or on Andre Bonatti rather, through the first sector, into the first chicane for the 3rd time, now the 4th time. Still nothing doing there for Urexo. It's got to get frustrating that he's better through about half the lap, but not through the most important half of the lap with those straights.
Honestly, Joey, I think it's more so he prefers it to be this way to save the gas, as we just talked about. Because if it was up towards the front, he would be in that position where he's burning more fuel. Benatti, if he wants to, could end up pushing and saving. And Urexo is always amongst those we know that's thinking big picture when it comes to this series. If you're in the midst of these draft trains, like we're seeing throughout this pack, and you have a run, like right here's the good example. Has the chance if he wants to make the pass, but right about here, he just lifts, gets himself about half throttle lift, not to the clutch, backs it down, saves a little bit, then saves a little bit before the braking mark, rolls it to the corner, a little bit backed up on the corner, just trying to get himself extra time for the pit stop, I think is the big key point here.
The tale of how things have changed for Aero Urexo. I remember when he was essentially the driver who was in the lead a few seasons ago. He was the one who would get the lead early, would try and run away, and then once the pit stop would roll around, he would end up getting beaten on fuel strategy. That's why he had such a frustrating time over the 2 seasons before this season. If you remember the season opener of this season at Watkins Glen, he again lost his first win to John Jones on fuel strategy, and then eventually he did get that first win the week after. But Aero Urexo has been a student of the strategy. He's proven himself as a real championship contender, as a champion here. Chet Miller, though, in trouble at the back of the field. A little bit of contact with Rodrigo Morales. Hard into the Armco underneath the pink sign. And that's going to be Chet Miller's day. Severely hampered. I believe he's still out there, but not with the healthiest Porsche in the world.
Yeah, the front nose completely destroyed there from that contact, as to be expected. But here's the major thing when it comes to some of these trains. Looking back to John Jones, who's amongst this pack, Eric Kalarga, Ryan Miller, been looking and seeing that a lot of these drivers aren't really giving each other much room. They're running right in the middle of the dotted lines up the streets that are set up here in France, that are closed off, of course, for the racetrack. They are not really leaving too much space because there is that little bit of impact in terms of being the middle of the racetrack sometimes. And in turn, it's developing things like this where it's either you're single file in a line or you're squeezing hard up the middle.
It looks a little bit like an oval race. Ironic as we come into Indianapolis here. Sully Sod all over the back of the 222, or all over the 64 of Ryan Miller, rather. Pulls to the inside, and there's no sending it to the inside of the corner there. Almost full throttle. Then into Indianapolis. You need to be fully alongside to really make a move like that work. And Sully Sod realized, I'm not fully aside. I don't want to wreck both of our cars right now. I'm going to back out of this and wait for another chance. And he almost loses it off of Arnage.
So I've been in near contact a couple times with Sada and turn on this lap because of how tight the racing's been getting in this mid-pack. And that's the most difficult part is you want to keep the track position, but sometimes you have to think, is this going to be a benefit to me if I keep on pushing, blocking, losing myself momentum? Or do I think big picture, think about the fuel strat? Michael Kalaga, for example, amongst those who might be thinking of what he can do here because he's losing ground in this Ferrari and is really struggling in this final sector in the corners.
A very, very difficult sector. Throws that into the Corvette curves. Looking back up front here, Aero Urexo once again on the exit. Not getting a great exit this time, though. We always had an advantage out of the final of the Ford chicanes. Not quite the case this time. Let's look back at Matt Arnold. I think we just saw a little bit of that instability I was talking about, Justin, in the Porsche. Throws it into the Porsche curves and almost instantly loops it around, did Matt Arnold.
He had already been dealing with some damage to the left rear just underneath the wing, causing that instability there. But in turn, you're right in terms of that balance. If you don't get the line just right, your car is going to have a hard time sticking to the racetrack, especially when it comes to the marble buildup and where the preferred line is for the rubber. Still looking, though, you see others like Urexo, as we talked about, just in that rhythm. Muller, Dominguez, Peterson all have the great chance to be able to battle for this race win because all of them are in this train. Again, I think it's going to come down more so to who saves the gas the best. Because if you can minimize time in the lane and control the lead from there, it could get very much so difficult for anyone else to make the pass outside and get in the draft if you're not in the top 3.
Trouble for Pete Mejia a little bit earlier. He's fallen out of the top 10, but Aero Urexo once again giving us deja vu up front, backing out of it, staying in line behind Andre Benatti, and still waiting for that pit stop. We're not quite to halfway in the race. That's going to happen in basically another lapse time, so we'll see if anybody decides to come in then. But look who's joining the fray. Dale Peterson in that Ferrari. Could he be the underdog here? He's been down on speed compared to previous seasons. Dale Peterson in the past has been a podium contender. He's been a consistent top 5 contender. This season, though, admittedly, hasn't had the chance to practice as much as normal, hasn't quite had the speed as normal, but in the top 5 in that highlighter yellow Ferrari, this would be a great run for Dale Peterson either way. Would be an even greater run if he can get himself back on the podium, which he knows he has the speed to do.
And knows he has the straight line speed to do here this week, but the main difficult part is you look at the differences car to car, especially. Peterson is the one who's struggling the most in terms of this, in terms of the cornering speed, where once you get to that corner, he's having a hard time. I've noticed that he off and on when it comes to apex so far. Taking a different line of the braking maneuvers compared to those who are trying to run the inside. Peterson, when he's trying to match the back end, for example, just struggling on the corner exit to maintain in some of the cases. The drafts is the main thing that's keeping him up right now. That's the most difficult part when it comes to a track like this is, yes, it can be like a super speedway, like a stock car race at, say, Talladega. But at the same time, if you can't maneuver the corners, you're not going to have a shot at winning the race.
We've given a shout out to basically everybody else in the top 5, but we do have to mention Peter Mahler as well. He was a late season entrant to this series, made his debut about halfway in, had a great qualifying in his first race in round 6, then P4 at Road Atlanta, P7 or P6 last week, and a potential podium this week. It has been a great run so far for Peter Mahler. He's shown a ton of speed, and maybe when next season rolls around of GT3 fixed, the number 997 driver back for a full season, he could definitely be a championship contender.
Yeah, you can see just electing not to follow the draft train so much, just trying to run his own strategies to keep it straight. Much those in the philosophy of why weave back and forth, it can be a bit slower. But again, I've seen Muller do well in several leagues before in some of these occasions. We're seeing the same thing here tonight. The downside is the top 2 again, better in the corners after the sweep. We've been bobbling. 5 estimated laps to go. We're about halfway home.
Does anybody decide to pit this time? Urexoy kind of dummies us, but not coming in this time. I think everybody's going to wait one more lap. I don't think there's going to be any real play in the pit window here. I think this lap is so long that everybody's basically going to have to come in at the same time. But there was still some gamesmanship there, and I think Urexoy is maybe trying to trick some drivers into thinking about coming in. Here's what happened to Felix Feliz in one of the Throttle Thursday BMWs. Nicholas Carangis, contact through the Porsche curves. A little bit of a car argument there, and 2 very unhappy drivers. But here's the first of the pitters. Carollo's in, Hamilton's in, Pete Mejia's in. It's kicking off.
Not too many, surprisingly, right at the halfway mark. Maybe thinking about the minute tally. But one of the drivers we talked about for the championship fight, Greg Doucette, who didn't set a qualifying lap, also amongst those in, he was able to get himself up double-digit spots before rolling his way into the 77. So now it's the matter of, this is the simple strat. Now, it's those who stay out here are playing the mathematical strategy.
Always difficult with math, especially with commentators. We can't do it, but here comes Urexoy and Andre Bonatti. He's finally said, you know what, I've saved enough fuel, I'm about to get aggressive. And Andre Bonatti says, you know what, Errol, have fun. You can take the lead if you want. I'm going to start saving some fuel now before we come into the pits. I don't know if that was a smart decision, though, Justin. Both drivers are going to have their own defenses here, but was it worth it for Bonatti to back out there? Or has Urexoy just taken track position and saved more fuel than anybody? Could that have just been the race-winning move?
Not sure quite yet. Urexoy had been saving for just about all those straightaways up to that point. So that's an indication he's comfortable in the number, knowing he's coming in soon. So yeah, though, this is exactly what I was talking about. Around 11th on back, this has been a wrestling match all race long. He hasn't had a chance to relax because every time he makes a pass, here comes another driver. Now it's Jones this time, and now here's the run as he squeezes in the middle.
This is getting very, very dicey. Not much room given by any of these 3 drivers. John Jones, one of the members of the NASCAR Cup Series here at the PRL. He's got a lot of stock car experience, and that did look a little bit like a stock car move, trying to find his lane, trying to use the draft. And as Sully Sod drifts it out of the second chicane, John Jones takes P11, and Sully Sod's not done. He's still got a very hungry Ryan Miller behind him, and he's going to be hunting in the draft coming down the last part of the Bolson Straight.
And Ryan Miller at one point, mind you, had been at least 5 car lengths ahead of Sam, but that's again, this is just a draft effect when it comes to this racetrack. You make a move, draft helps you back, you make the move back, over and over and over again. And eventually somebody has to say, okay, what do I do to break this trend? Because Eric Kalarga, for reference, broke the trend. He's now 3 seconds up the road from all of it. Here we go for the lead again.
Benatti takes a little bit of a peek into Indianapolis. Nothing doing for him there, though. See if he can get a good exit out of Arnage here. He's got a very hungry train of drivers behind him, and he is losing Aero Urexoy. Urexoy's pulled almost a full second on Benatti. All the straight line speed in the world might not even help Benatti here. And this is right before the pit stop. This is a critical time for Urexoy to get back on the gas pedal. And this makes me think he's just been playing with us this whole time. It might make Benatti think that as well.
Well, Arjuna, I've been saying it a couple times. Strategy is huge, and Urexoy is trying to use it. Now everyone else knows their strategy window's coming up to the end here. Do they push, or do they just conserve right up to the lane? Urexoy is pretty much making it clear. He's in push mode. He just gained 6/10 in the curves.
This is ridiculous levels of pace from Aero Urexoy. I think he's going to be in this time, but let's see. Filing through the final couple of corners, pit lane entry coming off to the right here, and indeed, Aero Urexoy is in, Benatti's in, Mahler, Dominguez, Peterson, everybody is in. It's the hard end of the fuel tank. It is pit stop time for everybody else, and now we wait and see. Has Urexoy been the best at saving fuel?
Hold on.
Can he hang on to the track position?
I think Peter Mahler just got hit in the pit entry.
Oh dear.
Ray Dominguez, I think, just hit him at the braking mark.
Maybe a little bit too late in the brakes for Dominguez. We'll have to take a look at a replay when we can. It's dramatic enough here with the pit strategy. Might have got even more dramatic with a little bit of damage. Ray Dominguez on board with him coming in. Just a little bit of an argument with everybody checking up for the pit lane speed limit, and Aero Urexoy perfectly hits his box there. I thought he slid through it, but that was a calculated slide. It was beautiful.
Here's the most gut-punching part, and the one that's going to get Peter frustrated and probably furious. He got a speeding penalty because he got hit at the pit entry. Sayat also speeding. Courageous having it come down. Here we go.
Ray Dominguez just took the lead off of pit lane. Dale Peterson up to second. Benatti and Urexoy, they've both been destroyed by Dominguez and Peterson. The 4th and 5th drivers in line have made an incredible jump, and they're up to 1st and 2nd.
Well, what's the saying, right, with super speedways? The further back you go, the easier it is to save. And that's not going to be a popular play because the contact he just had to give his competitor a speeding penalty, a 40-second stop and hold. But now, Benatti, along with Urexoy and Peterson, have to go. They lost 4 seconds because Dominguez saved so hard on the BMW.
My question is now, Justin, has Ray Dominguez saved 4 seconds of fuel, or has he actually underfueled the car? We have to look all the way down the order. The shortest pit stop in the entire field, 15.3 seconds for Jeff Carollo. I don't know if Dominguez has put enough fuel in the car. We'll have to wait and see. But the battle between Benatti and Urexoy is not over. Urexoy to the inside of Andre Benatti coming into the first chicane. He's clear of him before the braking zone. Urexoy's back on the podium.
Was about to say, that's not a surprise to see that quick swap around. He's been making it clear. Now he's in full attack mode. But to answer your question, Dominguez, quickest stop of the entire field, 13 seconds. Now that's the nervous part. Is that going to be enough gas for that final lap especially? Because if you run out of gas here, good luck.
I remember the Toyota a few years ago running out of, well, not necessarily running out of gas, but breaking down in the final lap. I've seen many, many tragic moments like that in the past. We'll see if Dominguez can make it. I don't know if it's going to be close in terms of time. I'm trying to do the math in my head here. I think we're going to cross the line with about 10 minutes to go, which should be guaranteed 3 laps to go. So it should be fairly straightforward there, but even then, has Dominguez put enough fuel in the car? I'm looking down the order. I did see one other driver who had a little bit of a shorter stop, Eric Kulaga in that Ford GT, 14.2 seconds in the box, but we do know that Ford has had the ability to save some fuel in the past, so that may be a little bit of an outlier. It's critical moments here, and it is going to get very, very tense once we cross the white flag.
Oh, this is well, that very iconic paint scheme has now made its way up to another pack because of the pit strategy too. It's the second quickest pit stop in the field, mind you, 14.2 seconds. Ford, has a chance to have a very solid ending here, a chance to at least pass by Keen, along with maybe Brent Pancari, who's just within touch here. And keep in mind, this paint scheme's been around for a long time. Did you know that it originally started off with a plane, not a car?
A Gulf plane?
The Grumman G22 Golf Hawk 2.
I think we need to send a PNG of that to Hugo and put it up on the screen. We need some Mystery Science Theater. I want to see that thing.
Basically adorned this color palette, or specifically the orange of it, in the 1930s. It's part of its delivery service. The company logo for the company, mind you. And indeed, it took till the 1960s to be able to get that influence then. Already hearing on the radio, some drivers across the field are still saving gas after the pit stop, mind you. So there's already some concern about making to the end for some drivers across the pack.
Brett Pancari not looking too concerned, though. He looks, as he usually does, poised and collected, living in the world of virtual reality, and wearing his Williams Racing shirt today. I don't know if that's going to give him any good luck or if that's going to give him bad luck, but either way, adding another sports property to his list of representation there, whether it's Peugeot, whether it's Mario Kart, whether it's Williams Racing, or whether it's assorted Canadian curling teams or hockey teams or whatever he usually has back there. He's a man of many sports. We might have to get Brett Pancari in the Olympics in the meantime. Also up front, Aero Urexo has finally made the move on Dale Peterson for second. And now, does it become the fight for the win with Urexo in second? Can he chase down Dominguez with that 5-second gap? Or can he just win if Dominguez runs out of fuel? Either way, he's in a good spot.
Well, that's the most difficult answer in this entire field right now is we've seen how difficult it is to be able to break away from the draft, let alone try and reel in somebody once they break the draft past 2 seconds. So to put it simply, does Urexo have enough pace to get within less than 2 seconds? Because that's where the major difference mark comes in. If Dominguez has to save, that might open up the door for them all. If Dominguez doesn't have to save until that final lap or elects to be a bit aggressive in terms of that to keep that margin at bay, then it's not going to be so easy for everybody else, but it puts them at a risk of running out of gas in the final lap.
Got to look a little bit deeper in the field for a moment because we need to give shout-outs to Greg Doucette and Ewan O'Leary in their BMWs. Remember, those two drivers started 35th and 34th all the way at the back of the field. They find themselves just off the top of the ticker. 17th for Greg Doucette, up 18 spots. 18th for Ewan O'Leary, up 16 spots. Fantastic runs for both of these drivers. The drive of a championship contender like Greg Doucette. No surprise to see him moving up the order, but that's Ewan O'Leary's best drive so far this season. He's had some trouble in his opening races, but he's survived so far after messaging me with maybe a lack of confidence coming in. He's had a great start to this race. We look a little bit further ahead, up into the top dozen, Michael Fowler and Pete Mejia. Remember, Justin, Michael Fowler started on the second row. He had a great qualifying run, fell down the order early, and he's still on a recovery drive as well.
And already hitting the clutch a little bit, trying to save a bit of gas down in the midst of this line. But he's had a couple of slowdowns that's hurt him a little bit because he's cut the 4 chicanes, for example. Another bit of slow-ups again for Michael Fowler because he has another slowdown to serve. That's been his Achilles heel. He's taking these curves too hard to the inside. He's cutting the course, and that's how you lose a lot of spots like this.
And this isn't a grade 1 track like Spa, for example, where we normally think about incident points, but you can easily rack up the incident points here through the Porsche curves, or through the Corvette curves, rather, where there's that asphalt runoff, cutting some of these chicanes too far to the inside. It's definitely easy to build up those incident points. And in the PRL, you only get 13 incident points before you have to serve a drive-through. You only get 17 incident points before you're totally disqualified. And there may be some drivers that are already starting to skirt that limit, like Michael Fowler.
Yeah, that might be the nervous mark at this point. That if you're thinking about incident points, you're looking, okay, what's my count? What's my count? And if you start looking like that, you end up panicking. But if you're amongst those keeping it clean, you're very calm for the most part if you're on your own. Not so much if you're Brent Pancari, because Jared Keane, once again, looking to battle. He's found his way up to the BMW, and it's peach time to try and hold on.
It is peach time. Peachy Keen is this battle. Jared Keane, your race winner from last week at Barcelona. Fantastic run from him in that Porsche, but the disadvantage of that Porsche here at Le Mans has dropped him down the order just a bit. trying to maximize this race, though, behind Brett Punkari. He's going to have to slot back in line, though. Punkari's retaking control of this battle for just a moment. We have to look up front, Justin, at that time going down. Aero Urexoy down below 3 seconds now. Down below 2.5 seconds almost, as Dominguez is saving tons of fuel. Urexoy's coming, and he's coming fast with 2 laps to go.
This is exactly what Urexoy needs with him having to save. That was the concern I mentioned. You either save and hope that there's going to be not enough time to get the pass done, or you push and then hope you don't run out of gas. Dominguez obviously playing it safe. He already mentioned he made a mistake earlier this season when it comes to strategy because he forgot his strategy in one of the races in the past couple weeks, mind you. But now, Urexoy going to have a shot in these corners. If he gets within 2 seconds, it's race on for the final lap.
And on that previous lap, Justin, you know how fast Aero Urexoy was compared to Ray Dominguez? He was a full 2 seconds faster. That's how much fuel Dominguez has had to save. That's how fast Urexoy is. If Dominguez wants to hang on to this, he's going to have to make that the widest BMW in the world once Urexoy catches him.
And I'm looking at the interval right now. The average speed when it comes to the bottom end of the straight line speed, much quicker for Urexoy. It's more on the middle where it gets quicker for the BMW. Top end still towards the Porsche, and that's not even factoring in the fact Dominguez is backing up the corners aggressively. So this is a huge chance here. Urexoy, he's now there. All he needs is one more good run to the Mulsanne straight, and he's there for the final lap.
These guys have been the titans of the season so far. Aero Urexoy, 3 times a winner. Ray Dominguez, 2 times a winner. And they are about to meet in the middle. Dale Peterson's kind of sitting back here, enjoying the show. He's hoping that once Urexoy catches Dominguez, they have a little bit of argy-bargy. Dominguez maybe defends a little bit too hard, and then he can come through to take his first win in the PRL. But he's got a few more moments to wait for that. Urexoy still just charging the corners. It's now below 2 seconds again on exit. That Porsche is flying, and that gap continues to come down. Maybe not as fast as it did on the previous lap. But has Dominguez saved enough fuel, or does he have even more fuel saving to go?
That's a really good question because he's got nobody to save off. No lap traffic in this race because the track size to think about or use as a saving measure. It's all down to how he's taking the corners, how he's backing up the corners, and that's the most tricky part. I think he's starting to pick up the pace a bit because he's starting to turn that pace forward, knowing that if he allows Urexoy to get any closer than this, then his strategy's out the window.
And Dale Peterson's also picked up the pace. He's within the draft of Aero Urexoy. Second place might not be off the table for Dale Peterson if Urexoy can't catch Dominguez himself. This could get very, very interesting here on the final lap as everybody tries to meet in the middle. Urexoy, he's got more fuel than anybody. 20.5 seconds in the box, a very, very long stop. Remember back to a couple minutes ago, he has been on Struggle Street. We got to battle a little bit further back. Matt Schlosser versus Ewan O'Leary. Schlosser has had some arguments so far this race. He's had a little bit of trouble, but he's back to his usual ways, fighting with Ewan O'Leary for P19 now. Ewan's lost his spot. That's the first time I think he's been overtaken in a little while as Schlosser tries to recover.
And that's by a car that ended up slamming the Armco barrier heading through Tetra Rouge a while back and brought a second car Bridges with them. But again, just to emphasize a bit, strength Ferrari. O'Leary for the first time today, though, inside the mark of under 4 seconds. Congratulations.
Well, Ewan O'Leary doing us proud here, race spot commentator, and he's done better than I ever would at Le Mans. He's done better than me, who's gotten disqualified multiple times in the PRL and F3. So well done, Ewan. I hope we see him back next season. I know we won't, though, because it's a very, very light night for Ewan. He's still finishing up his uni studies over there in the UK, and these are some very late nights. This is going to be his PRL swan song over the next 2 weeks. Michael Fowler up in 15th place. Terrible news for him. He's binned it. He's back on pit road. It wasn't the incident points that got him. It was the incident that got him, and his day is going to end on pit lane.
And terrible angling there too. Just a slam to the concrete wall. But by the time he slid to the grass, you have no control once you're on the brakes. Just a terrible placement in terms of the tire barrier. But now, Dominguez and Urexoy still 2.1 seconds. Dominguez starting to slow up a little bit in terms of some of that acceleration, but Uruxoy is still not fully within the range to start chipping away by draft.
Now, this was a very, very important lap here for Dominguez in the previous run. Still slower than Uruxoy by about 7/10, but not that much slower. And he's got a comfortable margin here on the final lap. If he has enough fuel in the tank, if he doesn't run out, he may have some good control here, but that is the question. That is going to be the most tense feeling in the world for Dominguez, watching that fuel number and trying to figure out, was that short stop enough? Have I thrown this away? Can I make it to the end? He's got about 2 more minutes to go before he can realize that, and Uruxoy is hoping and praying that that short stop from Dominguez does not beat that long stop from him.
Yeah, and Uruxoy is starting to go back into full send mode in the middle of the corners. That's not going to make things too easy. Here's the thing. If Dominguez does have the fuel, with how this plays out, it takes the half lap once you're within that under 2 second, around 1.9, 1.8 seconds mark we've seen here today, for it to truly start reeling you in. It takes half a lap to do that through the Porsche curves and the Ford curves. That's the major benefit right now. Dominguez has that buffer to be able to defend, where as long as he doesn't slide off the track, he's in a good position.
Been kind of an unexpected result so far for Ray Dominguez. Came into this race, qualified 5th. Honestly, one of his weakest qualifyings of the season. He's been so quick this season, but he's done a fantastic job of riding in line. He was riding in 4th for the longest time, 5th for the longest time, and a shorter pit stop than any of his rivals. Gained him a ton of ground. And now it's the ultimate test. Dominguez has been able to win races on pace before. He's been able to win races holding off Uruxoy in a wheel-to-wheel battle before. But now it's a challenge of winning a race on strategy. Dominguez is not in the championship fight anymore. He's had too much bad luck. He's unfortunately been a little bit too inconsistent this season. But if he can win again now, this is going to be a great statement coming into next season that he will truly be a championship contender. And he will be back in GT3 Fix next season. He's signed up. Uruxoy's signed up as well. And that could be a titanic battle next season. But this battle's not over.
It still comes down to execution in these final few corners here. It may show final lap up top, but it's going to be, I think, more so, can they survive?
The most tense feeling in the world, but that Logitech BMW of Ray Dominguez into the Porsche curves for the final time. Is it home free for Ray? If he can hang on for 2 more seconds, or for 10 more seconds rather, to hold that 2-second gap, he will hang on for his 3rd win of the season into the Corvette curves for the final time. It has been a strategy masterclass from Ray Dominguez. He's been the fastest driver in qualifying this season, and suddenly he finds himself the best strategist in the PRL GT3 Fix this season. Into the Ford chicanes for the final time. It doesn't even matter if he has fuel in the car, because he can coast it from here through the final 2 corners. Ray Dominguez, the BMW driver in the BMW, wins at Le Mans. He takes down the Porsches, he takes down the Ferraris, and in the cockpit of his virtual car, he's going to be a very, very happy guy taking his 3rd win of the season.
I think he ran out of gas just as he was coming down through those final corners. That gap went down quickly. Dominguez played this out near perfectly, knowing that buffer. He's not going to make it on the cooldown lap, though. What a finish.
Andrew Venaro coming through here for P14, a solid run for him. But look at the driver behind, Greg Doucette. 15th place. He's not going to be happy with that at all, but he is going to be happy with the fact that he made up 20 spots in this race. And Ewan O'Leary as well, holding off an aggressive run from Matt Schlosser from P34 to P17. Ewan O'Leary has his best run of the season and only his 3rd race, and he's going to be regretting not qualifying, I think.
Yeah, that's a bit of an understatement. And that's a car that's absolutely decimated.
It's still going to finish. Well done, Waldo. Waldo Walden crossed the line in what's not even really a Ferrari anymore. It's some scrap metal, but if it finishes the race, all the same.
All the same, but all points really matter, to say the least. For the most part, I'm surprised that Wada made it without a meatball flag. And some of these others, go to the car you've seen just in the backdrop that's already left the racetrack. That was a skewed race car that was driving with the crab because of that contact earlier.
Still waiting for a few others to make it to the line. David Morse ran into some trouble. He's still going to bring it to the finish. And Matt Arnold in that gold Porsche behind. Remember, he had a huge spin earlier on. He was one of those drivers who was trying to recover from the back of the field. And just finishing the race is going to be good for him, because both of these drivers know that every single position matters for points in the PRL. And it might not be a championship season for either of these guys, but they're all fighting for every championship position. David Morse makes it across the line. Matt Arnold makes it across the line. And that may have only been a 35 minutes of Le Mans, Justin, but it certainly felt like an endurance race.
Yeah, especially when it comes to the size of this racetrack. But in the end, execution huge.
Execution for Ray Dominguez, his first real strategy win this season, and he beats Errol Urexoy in what may be a preview for a championship battle next season. Dale Peterson, easily his best run of the season. He comes home with a podium. He's going to be very happy about that. Andre Bonatti led the race for quite a while early on. Strategy didn't go his way, though. He comes home with a P4. Steven Martinez quietly in the top 5. Seems like the tale of his season. And Jeff Carollo drags the Audi, the slowest car of the week, into the top 6. Buck Hamilton, Jared Keane, Brett Punkari, and Ford Zone Eric Kulaga brought us down to the end of the top 10. Then P11, just outside of the top 10, was John Jones ahead of Michael Kulaga. Ryan Miller in his PRL debut finishes unlucky 13th ahead of Andrew Vanaro. And Greg Doucette up 20 spots from his starting position ahead of Pete Mejia. Ewan O'Leary, his first finish of the season, up 17 spots from his starting position. Matt Schlosser ran into some trouble. Peter Mahler, speeding penalty after getting hit by race winner Ray Dominguez, falls all the way down to 19th. And Jason Bridges finishes 20th. 21st was Felix Feliz. Waldo Walden did finish the race in that exceptionally damaged car. And then Sullivan, Carangis, Saad, Miller, Morales, Morse, Fowler, and Matt Arnold brought us down to the end of the lead lap. Glenn Vanko went one lap down, and then we start to get into the used car lot of cars that ended with heavy damage. Joachim Backer got into some trouble. We didn't see what happened to Ryan Chandler, but he had some trouble just like his brother Reagan Chandler. And then Sean Mulholland, a very, very large crash on the back stretch, was the end of his day. But we are ready to start talking to some of our podium sitters, and first and foremost, it's race winner Ray Dominguez. But I think we may have to wait a moment to talk to Ray, because he's having some technical difficulties. He's just let us know there. So first and foremost, let's go in reverse order. Let's talk to our podium sitter, our third place podium sitter, Dale Peterson, on the podium for the first time this season. You mentioned a couple of weeks ago, it's been a season where you haven't been able to practice as much, you haven't had the speed you wanted, but how good does this podium feel at Le Mans?
It's really good. It's been a rough season, and it's kind of looking forward to the break and maybe getting a little bit more seat time for next season.
So how critical is that, especially in this series where the level is so high? How important is seat time? How much have you felt that getting that extra little bit of practice has helped you?
For myself, it's a lot. I find if I get on and what I think is a quick lap the first night I race is not a quick lap the second night, and it just gets quicker and quicker and quicker and more consistent too. So it's like anything.
Well, Dale, we're happy to see you back on the podium at a place like this. Got to feel fantastic. Congrats, and we'll see you for the season finale next week.
Yeah, thanks for everything you do, guys. Thanks.
Dale Peterson, the driver of the number 6, started P6, made up 3 spots, and finished on the podium. Next up, it's second place finisher Errol Urexoy. He's with Justin Prince.
Yes, indeed, Errol, first things first. What are your thoughts on how this broke down today? Strategy coming in quick.
It worked better than I had planned. I came into this thinking Ray was gonna own it with that BMW. They're pretty quick in a straight line. I knew I had to keep him from getting fastest lap in the pole position and then at least finish third. So I ticked all those boxes. So I'm feeling pretty good going into Phillip Island.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because we talked about coming into this one, the Porsche around the middle of the table when it comes to POP entering the week. How in turn did that play into your impact tonight, especially since for a lot of this race you saved fuel, but still had the longest pit stop delta of your group?
Yeah, my crew chief let me down in the pit and didn't start fueling right away. So I'm not really sure what happened there. But Ray, I tell you what, Ray's magic in the pits again. Even if I had not had any issues, I think he still would have pipped me out of the pit. He was just like in and out, and so good on him. But I'm feeling pretty good about where I'm at right now going into Phillip Island.
Yeah, talking about Phillip Island, final race of the campaign for this season. Your thoughts as you get ready to close things out. Greg Doucette, for reference, started at the back, still finished mid-pack, and likely potentially a drop if near drop. So how in turn does that factor in now for you?
I need to bring it in on a podium in Phillip Island at least. If I can do that, then I'm in pretty good shape, no matter where anybody else finishes.
We'll see what happens next time out. Congratulations on the podium, at least tonight.
All right, thanks, guys.
Ari Ruxoy, top 2 tonight, but it came down to strategy, as you mentioned, Joey. Ray Dominguez executes for the win.
Indeed, he did. I gotta ask you first and foremost, Ray, 7 seconds faster in the pits than second place Ari Ruxoy, almost 2 seconds faster than anybody else. How did you do that? How did you save that much fuel?
Well, it all came down to the pace of the guys, of the guys in front. I was honestly expecting to be a bit quicker. But I wasn't. Then I had to change my mind and to just, save fuel and under fuel on my stop because it was either do or die. Because if I came out, behind those guys again, I had no chance, behind them. I had to under fuel and just pray for the best. And I ended up, making it to the line.
Do or die, indeed. And I called you the BMW driver in the BMW coming to the line, and that's because you are still in your projected BMW behind you. How many extra tenths does that give you? How much of that is that BMW synergy helping?
I think it actually slows me down.
Oh,
to be
no.
honest with you. Yeah.
It certainly speeds you up in our mind, though. So, third win of the season, Ray. It's been a tough season in some places, a great season in others. How are you looking through the final round of the season, where the championship might be difficult, but you could still get one more win going into next season?
Let's be honest. So far, this has been one of the toughest races, and mind you, it's basically a straight line. It's basically straight, and some people might think it's easier than other tracks, but this one, proved to be really tough for me because of the draft and fuel saving and all that. Going into Phillip Island, honestly, I need to practice 7 days straight from now if I want to make a difference. But, Errol has way too many points and he's got a lot of speed. So I'll need some magic, I need to work some magic in Phillip Island to make it.
Well, Ray, we'll let you get practicing right now. We'll let you get to those 7 days. Congrats on the win, and we will see you for the championship finale next week.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Ray Dominguez victorious for the 3rd time this season, Justin. A very, very happy trio of drivers there, and we're about to have some even happier fans at home because the racing is not done tonight. That's right, it's time for the second half of the double card here on Tuesday nights. It's the PRL GT3 Sprint Series. We add 5 minutes to the race time, we open the setups, and we crank up the average iRating by thousands of points. It's been a crazy season so far, so many race winners, and it's been a battle of the titans at the top of the championship standings. Karl Modoff versus Vincent Trepanier versus Boris Ovando. It's separated a little bit over the past couple of weeks with a bad race from Trepanier at Road Atlanta and his drop round being taken away. The championship's expanded to 14 points between them, but at a place like Le Mans where things can go very, very crazy, we could see Boris Ovando coming back in the championship fray. We could see Trepanier and Modoff falling off. You never know as we come into Le Mans, which is always a wild card. The team standings are a little bit separable as well. You see Advanced Motorsports up at the top of the table by a measly 133 points over Precision Racing Esports Purple. Unfortunately for PRE, they've been a little bit separated so far this season with their two squads. Some teams have scored points some weeks, some have scored some others, and you see them quite a bit far off of Advanced Motorsports. SimCity Racing, now with one team, has fallen to 4th, and Unit Sim Sports are holding on to 5th quite comfortably. Vaporworks up front, Vulture Motorsports North bring themselves down to P8. Nick and Ted's Excellent Adventure, incredibly in the top 10 in team points this season, and TR, powered by Geeks Energy, rounds out the top 10. But we got to get into qualifying here, Justin. Only 2.5 minutes to go, and very, very scarily, the top 2 in the championship, Karl Modoff and Vincent Trepanier, have not been able to set a qualifying lap yet. They've got one shot.
Yeah, they're running out of time, and running out of time fast because of incident points so far in qualifying. Modoff 3 laps, not a single one without an off track. Trepanier 3 laps, not a single one without an off track. It's absolute panic mode if you're in that situation. Beckham just here for reference has already finished up qualifying, so Boris Ovando trying to work with his teammates here just up the road to see if he can get himself the pole here. Needs half a second.
We have to talk about drop weeks with everybody in championship contention. Carl Modof's drop week right now is round 1 at Watkins Glen when he ran out of fuel on the final lap from the race lead, finished 14th. That's going to be his drop week. Vincent Trepanier, his drop week was Road Atlanta last week, got into some trouble, got some penalty points, lost 10 points because he hit Jeremy Gonsalves, rejoining the track awkwardly at Road Atlanta. Could that be championship defining for him? It might just be. Boris Ovando, his drop week is a DNS. He did not start in week 6, so he doesn't have a drop week really. He needs to be absolutely perfect, because if he has a bad week, he's out of championship contention. Dominic Olivier, he's had a bad week in week 1 as well. Beckham Jasir, his drop week came in week 4. He crashed out. Basically everybody can't afford to have one more bad week.
This is not the track either in terms of if you want momentum for a championship to have that happen. There's a lot of chances for it to happen, but at the same time, if you really realistically want a chance, you have to perform on a track like this with a lot of others ready to capitalize. It's worth mentioning that with things open on the setups, guess what? You know where your highest running Ferrari is in the field?
E5.
Outside of that one, where's your second highest?
Is it Ted, who hasn't set a qualifying lap time in 33rd?
Correct, and also Nasir.
Oh dear, but Boris Ovando in the Porsche, still proving that it's a very, very slippery car and a very, very quick car through the Ford chicanes for the final time for him. He's going to cross the line to be the first driver to take the checkered flag. Can Boris Ovando jump onto the front row? Michael Terrafino puts it on the front row, and Boris Ovando puts it on pole across the line with a 1:35. No, he doesn't. The time ticked over with a few more tenths coming to the line. He got our hopes up, but Boris Ovando stays third. But Michael Terrafino, the GT3 fixed champion from the past 2 seasons in sprint, gets a great lap time on the board. Vincent Trepanier does end up in third in the dying moments. With 1 lap on the clock, he did what counted, he did what he needed to do, and he is in third. Still waiting for Carl Modoff, though. He's still got a lap on the board. We'll see if he can join his championship rival up in third, but Juan Malagon's up first.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of draft off, a lot of Porsches. He's also really assisting his teammate here to help out with track position. That's who's right on behind, who actually bailed out down the end of the Mulsanne straight to be able to let his teammate go for this chance here. Is this going to be enough till he's got the unit cars to pull? 3:55.3. That's a solid pickup to 13th.
Good lap for Juan Malagon, but here's Carl Modoff. Is this a real lap, or is this an out lap for Carl Modoff? Is he going to have to start from the back of the field with his championship rivals in 3rd and 4th? Modoff crosses the line. P9. He's saved himself a little bit, but that is not a Carl Modoff starting position. He is not used to starting that low, and he puts himself in the danger zone starting on row number 5.
Yeah, that's a very big rarity when it comes to his starts. Most of the time throughout the season, inside the top 5, a couple poles after all. His lowest starting position coming in tonight, 6th position. So it's going to be at least a row further back. But as we've seen at the start, if you're amongst that top 3 for the green flag, that's a massive advantage.
And Justin, I think when Michael Terrafino crossed the line, he had a couple of seconds on the clock. So this lap will count, I believe, for Terrafino. He could very well put it on pole here. These cars only get faster over the course of the run, and the fuel loads get lighter. This could count for Terrafino. This could be a huge day for the driver who just moved up to the Sprint Series.
Yeah, that I'm going to keep an eye on, especially when it comes to this, because you mentioned that quicker every time. He hasn't ducked into the pit lane once, hasn't changed the tires, hasn't gone in to adjust anything, has just went out, drove, did his job, try and run well. I think you throw Dickinson into the mix too, who's inside maybe the edge of the drafting distance, if not just outside of it, to try and make things really interesting. Dickinson especially needs these spots. He's starting right now 13th if things hold.
And this would be a very, very good result for Michael Terrafino's confidence. He won 2 GT3 fixed championships at the end of 2022 and at the start of 2023. Then was essentially forced up into the Sprint Series. They said, you know what? You've bided your time in the GT3 Fix Series. You've learned your craft. You've won enough. We got to put you with the big dogs now. And for the past 2 seasons, he has been cutting his teeth up here in the Sprint Series, getting faster and faster and more experienced with every season. And this is the first time we've really seen him with race-winning pace with the pros, with guys who have almost 5,000 more iRating than him. And this could be a fantastic day, or at least the start of a fantastic day for Michael Terrafino. If he could beat Beckham Jasir to pole, a guy who's won this season, he's got a few more corners to go to see if he can do it.
See if he ends up trying to keep it going here. We've seen drivers duck out before. This is a counting lap. Nicely done for the Ford Chicanes. Kept it straight.
The 2-time GT3 fixed champion in the Sprint Series. Can Terrafino put it on pole? A little bit of a bobble out of the final corner, and he knows he's not going to improve. A bobble out of the final corner. He wrecks across the line. I think he may have improved time-wise there, but it wasn't going to be enough for pole. Either way, the front row for Michael Terrafino is going to be incredible for that driver. And with how fast that BMW is in a straight line, we cannot count out Michael Terrafino for getting his first GT3 Sprint win tonight.
And it was talked about already. The BMW is very sporty here when it comes to this track. Second best in the VOP entering the week across the official races. So it's realistic. There could be a strong chance for Terrafino as a result. Couple drivers at this point taking the chance to practice. As mentioned, this is one of the Ferraris. Only 3 Ferraris in the field, and the Vaporworks machine looking to try and find a lot of confidence, especially after some of the interestingness coming into the week when it comes to that grouping in the Vapor machines.
And Faraz Nasser, definitely looking at this race as a place where he could get a great result, but he's going to be starting from the deep end of the field with Nick McLaughlin. Nick McLaughlin, another driver, by the way, who was coming into this week knowing that that Ferrari was fast, but with only 20 minutes, Justin, you only get so many chances at Le Mans in qualifying with how long these laps are. And if you run into trouble, if you make multiple mistakes, you basically get one shot to nail it. And if you don't nail that, you're starting all the way at the back of the field. And that's what Nasser, McLaughlin, Miguel Angel Fonseca, and Matt Scherf, and a few others are going to have to do. They're going to have a lot of ground to make up, and they're hoping that they can do what Greg Doucette did a couple of moments ago and make up 20 spots.
We'll see.
Ross Nasser still going to finish this qualifying lap time. It's not going to count for him, but it's going to be some practice either way. We saw what Joachim Backer did in the previous race, getting himself some airtime, getting himself some practice time, and gets us to talk about a driver who is making his PRL debut this season. Haven't seen him before, and the clock runs to 0 while he's out on track. Bad luck for Faraz there, but he got some extra corners anyway. But up front, it's Beckham Jasir, a driver who's won this season. Can he win for the second time in the fiercely forward Porsche? Michael Terrafino, the former Team Beef driver, his best qualifying ever in GT3 Sprint starts in the front row. Vincent Trepanier and Boris Ovando, 2 of our championship contenders, need to make some big ground up on Carl Modoff tonight, and they've done that with that qualifying. Dominic Olivier starts 5th, alongside Diego Morales, who switched to the Ferrari specifically for tonight. He was out of championship contention. He wanted a new car. Ethan Bass in the Ford qualifies P7 alongside Fernando Jaquez. Then it's Carl Modoff, championship leader, deeper in the order than he's used to. And Ryan O'Connor, another fantastic qualifying, his best run of the season in the Mercedes in P10. Alessandro Torchio starts alongside Jeremy Gonsalves, a pair of Porsches on row number 6. Then unlucky 13th went to the Lamborghini of Sean Dickinson. Ted Lowendick in the slippery Ferrari P14. Then it's Juan Malagan and the former SimCity racing driver Ryan Puctel on row number 8. Vincent Trepanier's Advanced Motorsports teammate Simon Thiriot starts on P17 alongside David Mendonça in P18. 19th went to Martin Crisp, 20th Nathan Bartley, then Quacquin and Arnaud Genet. It's a Porsche party here from 19th to 22nd. Then it's Kevin Simpson in the Lamborghini alongside Joshua Spears on row number 12. 25th, Justin Delano. 26th, Marc-Andre Desjardins, Anderson, Magnan, Breton, and the Ford of Jay Steffi down to the end of the top 30. But the hits keep on coming because 31st went to Joe Carnes. Matt Scherf did get a qualifying lap time in the dying moments, was only good enough for 32nd though. And then Miguel Angel Fonseca, Nick McLaughlin, and Faraz Nasser all looking for assorted amounts of recovery once the race rolls around, especially those 2 Ferraris at the back of the field. But this is going to get very, very interesting here, Justin. 2 Ferraris at the back of the field are going to be looking to make their way forward. Carl Modoff, your championship leader, starting deeper in the order than he's used to. And a guy who's never started on the front row in the Sprint Series starting up front. That's a lot of things I just mentioned, and they're all going to meet in the middle.
Yeah, now it's the matter as well of how are the setups going to play into a factor in terms of how things go tonight. How do drivers get going in terms of that strategy? A little bit more wider the window by about a lap or two. But for the most part, again, track position so important. That already the first step for our championship competitors. Karl Mordov, for reference, already telling his competitors he found his best lap of the session with an off-track in a different spot than he was expecting. But now, it's the matter of doing it with tracks on the cars on the track for position, because if you don't do well tonight, you're leaving points on the table.
Beckham Jasir is a driver who we haven't really mentioned in terms of championship contention, but if things go crazy tonight, he could very well put himself in contention. He's within mathematical contention with only 30 points behind Modov, and he's only 2 points behind Dominic Olivier, who he outqualified. He's only 14, so Ovando in third. If he has a great night tonight, he needs to hope that Trepanier and Ovando fall back a little bit. He needs to hope that Modov doesn't move up at all, and he can put himself within maybe a dozen points or so coming into Phillip Island, which would still be an uphill battle, because we do have to remember that points count for every position in the PRL, and they basically go down one by one by one by one on the roadside. So if you need to make up 12 points on a driver, you basically have to make up 12 positions on them. But anything can happen, and that is why everybody keeps their mathematical considerations in. I'm going to ask you the same question I did in the fixed race, Justin. Who's coming out with a win tonight? Can Beckham Jasir hang on? Who's it going to be?
Honestly, based on how things played out, I like Terrafino, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Trepanier in terms of the consistency for the Advanced Motorsports squad this year.
Well, here we go. The Porsche pace car pulling off of the Ford chicanes, the flyover flying through the heart of the sun once more, and it's going to be a single file start through the Ford chicanes to keep everybody safe, and Beckham Jasir, the fiercely forward Porsche, takes us to the green flag for the second race of the night. We're racing at Le Mans, and Michael Terrafino gets aggressive already, pulling to the outside of Beckham Jasir, trying to get a better run through turn one, into the Dunlop chicane for the first time. Can Terrafino be later on the brakes? He cannot. He's got to slot back in line, but he's going to stay as close as he can to Beckham Jasir to try and use the full advantage of the straight line speed of that BMW as we file down the S's for the first time, though. It's a great start for Jasir, and Terrafino's trying to hang on.
Yeah, Jasir already showcasing that he's been very comfortable when it comes to the corners all throughout the campaign for the past couple of years. You could argue the tough part, again, the draft effect going to make it difficult to break away. Now it's the matter, too, what does Terrafino do? Better yet, what does Trepanier do once they go up the Mulsanne straight here and through the chicanes, in terms of do they stay in a line and save, or do they push the pressure and leapfrog Terrafino and then save?
You see the red and black Porsche of Karl Modov, the first driver in the background, pulling out a line. He's trying to make a move on Fernando Jaquez, and Boris Ovando and Vincent Trepanier looking at a move into the chicane, but here's Modov moving early to the inside of Fernando Jaquez, and he's got the move made to the first chicane, up into P8.
Nicely done, and maintaining the draft. Oh, yes, yes, that was a little bit of a wide bubble. That's going to slow him down on this, and that is not what Modov needed, because if they battle too long for this spot, that might lose them all of the draft for a while.
And Ryan O'Connor there in that Mercedes as high as he's been all season. Nick McLaughlin and Ted Lowendick, I was talking to them before the race. They were saying the Mercedes might be a dark horse here. Everybody's been talking about the Ferrari, but the Mercedes of Ryan O'Connor may be a great ticket for a good result, and he's in the top 10. Modov gets P8 back and bobbles less on the exit of the chicane, though. He's going to hang on to that P8 and start looking forward to Ethan Bass. But Ryan O'Connor behind him, he's peeking to the inside of Jaquez. 10th's not good enough for Ryan. He wants a top 9. And he's going to get by Fernando Jaquez before they even get to the end of the straight.
Yeah, that speed in the midst of the draft, really impressive. Ryan O'Connor just about had the chance to be able to slice and dice from the right to the left. Not the smart play. Smart to get back in line, stay in a line, work together, see if they can close back up to Ethan Bass.
Been a remarkably clean first lap so far. I don't think I've seen anybody get into trouble, but I don't want to jinx anything just yet, because Ryan O'Connor challenging Karl Modov, the winningest driver in PRL GT3. Karl Modov versus Ryan O'Connor, who hasn't got it done yet. Gets around Modov in a straight line. That Mercedes is flying.
Third best when it comes to the BOP coming into this week in all the official series. So not a surprise to do it well. You said it yourself. It looked to be a strong car if you had the choice of a Mercedes AMG for tonight. Now, true test. Can he run from Modov and then get up to Bass? Or will this become a back and forth and cause trouble spots for Modov's championship hopes?
We have to give Ryan O'Connor a lot of credit here because he had sort of a dual program to start this season. Was racing in GT3 Sprint again, but was also racing in the PRL NASCAR Xfinity Series on Wednesday nights. Was trying the oval side of racing in the PRL for the first time. Had some terrible luck. Hasn't been able to finish out the season with some other commitments, but this will be a great bookend to the season with the first top 10 in GT3 Sprint for a driver who's had a ton of bad luck. He needs a result like this to start turning things around. But we look a little bit further back. Sean Dickinson, unlucky 13th in the Lamborghini. Not a car we've really looked at to be especially strong, but it's Sean Dickinson's favorite, and he is trying to move up into the top dozen.
Yeah, just trying to line things up with the trap. Gonsalves for Julian Munsters in the F3 Series as well this season, and was actually one of the top drivers for a little bit before missing the past couple rounds there. For the most part,
Vando's off, Justin. Boris Ovando's made a mistake. He's falling down the order, down to P7. I think Ryan O'Connor is going to be in his clutches as well. I didn't see what happened to him, but Boris Ovando, who needed a great race, I think he's serving a slowdown. He's going to fall out of the top 10.
That's a horrible time for it to happen because he was in the top group. He had the track position. That's completely split things apart for the lead group and put him right in the midst of what we're following along with here. That is a swing of about 4 or 5 seconds.
That was a driver who needed this good race tonight to keep that championship hope alive. But let's see what happened to him, Justin. Out of the final corner, everything looks okay, but that's because he got the slowdown before that. He's serving it down the front stretch. He ran out of time to serve it. He had to check up in a straight line, and that's the worst possible time to serve a slowdown.
Absolutely horrific for his race in terms of the early going here, because when you're that far back, it's very hard to recover, especially at this racetrack. The further back you go, the harder it is to be able to bounce forward when it comes to this pack, because you end up having the back and forth cost you some time.
Side by side into the chicane, a little bit further back. Jaquez and Torquio side by side. Alessandro Torquio for Juncos Hollinger Esports. Fernando Jaquez for CRT, and it is a slowdown, as Justin says, for Torquio. He's got to check up, might even let Dickinson get by him. Gonsalves is in a little bit of trouble as well.
Yeah, a lot of drivers having slowdowns, especially down that straight, and that's the terrible part, because once you lift, you're basically in a spot where you end up having to lift for about half the next run to the chicane. Torquio getting passed by a bunch of cars because he hasn't been able to clear the penalty yet, and it's been at least 20 seconds on the 73.
Yep, that black and green Juncos Hollinger Esports Porsche still serving a slowdown. He's still serving it, and I think he's got a black flag, as Justin said. He did not serve it fast enough, and Alessandro Torquio is going to have to serve a drive-through and a stop and go. That's his race over already, basically.
Yeah, that is a rough spot for the Juncos Hollinger Esports machine. Giorgio Dorso, a longtime member of the organization, on his box. They're going to be talking a lot about that one because it took them the whole 30 seconds just to even do what they just did there and lose at least 10 spots. Looking at the front.
Vincent Trepanier challenging Michael Terrafino. Unfortunately for Terrafino, he hasn't really been able to stick with Jasir. Didn't have the best start in the world, and since then it has been Jasir pulling away. But Terrafino would still be very, very happy with a podium here in this series, or even a top 5 for that matter. He's going to fight for his life against Vincent Trepanier. And look, a few cars back there. Diego Morales in that Ferrari. Like I said, deliberately switched into this Ferrari this week because he knew he wasn't fighting for the championship anymore. He might as well try and fight for a race win for the first time this season. He's done a great job so far in qualifying, up to P5 for the moment. It may be P4 as he challenges Dominic Olivier in the background.
Yeah, but that's going to take at least half a lap to solidify in terms of the positioning. But when you come to that mark, it's almost, again, why think big picture and strat when you can just go aggressive, push, 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 make pass, pass, pass. Problem is, even in the midst of this, you get kind of draft locked. And if anything, Morales is kind of draft locked here.
Not a phrase we say much in GT3 racing, but the draft lock does happen here at Le Mans. It happens at Spa. Happens at all sorts of places where we have these long, straight lines. And just to put this in context, by the way, Vincent Trepanier, third winningest, tied for second winningest driver in PRL GT3 history, one of the fastest drivers who's ever wheeled a GT3 car in the PRL, ahead of Dominic Olivier, last week's race winner, Beckham Jasir, a winner in GT3 and GT4 in the PRL, And at the center of them, and just setting the fastest lap of the race, is Michael Terrafino, the GT3 Fixed champion, the second-tier GT3 Series champion from a few seasons ago. It is a melange of drivers up here up front. It's a refreshing thing to see a lot of new drivers up in the head of the field. And Justin, I haven't even gotten to Ethan Bass, who currently sits P6 in the Ford.
Well, I think I at least know one person who's probably jumping up and down for the Ford. If Honey Wagner is awake, time to wake up. The Ford is running well.
Side by side a little bit further back as Modoff's on his recovery drive. He's gotten back by Ryan O'Connor. So he's starting the recovery, he's starting to move his way forward, he's back up into P7, but he has had a struggle of a race so far. He's already 6 seconds down to the race leader, and his hopes of beating Vincent Trepanier are very, very low right now. He's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, needing the chance to be able to get up there. I think there's a good chance to get up to Bass. The problem is, Ryan O'Connor, every time he's got a chance, he's not just saying, okay, it's time to save gas, let's push. Avando, here's the difference. He knows when he's got a bit of a slower run, may as well get back in the line, hold onto the spot instead of battle it out, has a teammate behind, let's regroup. Compare that to what we've seen with O'Connor, where O'Connor's made it clear he's not afraid to go back and forth every single time.
Warming up a little bit of a train here. Jaquez, then the two Precision Racing Esports teammates of Ovando and Gonsalves. Look a little bit further back to the non-Porsche battle, though, of Sean Dickinson and Ted Lowendick. You see Ted in the Ferrari looking at the inside, looking to the outside of Sean Dickinson, not being able to do anything, though, and he's got to slot back in line. But that Ferrari is very, very quick in a straight line, Justin. It's quicker than the Lamborghini, and in this battle of Italian marks, Ted Lowendick's got a very, very long straight now to try and take his move on Sean Dickinson.
Yeah, we'll see if that racing adventure ends up moving ahead. Now, him and Sean Dickinson had some not family-friendly discussion in terms of last names involving who's the better of who, but
I don't know what you're talking about, Justin. I don't know how that's possible.
Anyway, Lowendick is still doing so. This is one of his best races of the year.
It's been a great run so far. Saw a little bit further ahead, Modoff and O'Connor had a little bit of an argument. Modoff wins out, but while we're on the topic of that, here comes O'Connor to the inside of Carl Modoff. He is not done with his fight here. This has been the race of Ryan O'Connor's life, and he wants to make it as spectacular as possible. He's got to slot back in line now, but you mentioned it before. Ryan O'Connor is not giving up. He knows this is his best chance, and he's not just going to slot back in line.
Yeah, if you're Carl Modoff, you're screaming, let's calm down. You know why? Every time they do that, they lose 2/10 to Ethan Bass, and every time they do that, they lose the chance of even getting to the lead ever again. So somebody needs to say to Ryan O'Connor, let's stay in a line, or else we're not running for the win. If anything, Ethan Bass has ran away from them because of that toe that they needed to keep up with for the Porsche curves.
See what they can do. O'Connor still stalking Modoff. And we do have to remember the context here. I have to remind you every time because it never stops dumbfounding me. This is what Le Mans can do. This is how the running order gets jumbled up. Carl Modoff, winningest driver in PRL GT3 history by many, many, many wins. He's an all-time record holder. He's a titan of the series. And Ryan O'Connor, a recent addition to the Precision Racing Esports squad, a very strong driver in his own right, but not as experienced. And he is putting the fight to Carl Modoff. It's great to see. And could this be a prediction of next season where Ryan O'Connor comes in a little bit more experienced, more lap time under his belt? He could be a consistent top 10 runner next season if he can get in the right car.
Yeah, I'm curious about this myself because I've seen Ryan O'Connor do well over the years, off and on in terms of the league scene. But for the most part, again, just running his race, albeit to the frustration of Modoff, but here's that raw pace really settling on in. Now that he's calmed on down, Modoff's starting to run away, and I wouldn't be surprised based on this that we see Ryan O'Connor try and go side by side if he gets back up to Modoff again. Trouble spot is, Modoff has finally gotten the draft off the fast Ford.
We haven't talked much about next season so far tonight, Justin, but we do have to talk about that because signups are open on the Precision Racing League website for next season for every single series in the PRL, from Sunday night to Thursday night. And the PRL GT3 Sprint Series does still have many, many signups open. The Fix Series is basically full. There's still a few more spots for premium members if you sign up for that membership, but lots of spots here in this premium series, in the highest level of GT3 racing in the PRL and one of the strongest GT3 leagues in all of iRacing. Many, many spots if you do want to join. We see a lot of familiar names on the entry list so far for next season. Of course, the winners from this season, Vincent Trepanier signed up again. I believe Carl Modoff is going to sign up again. I don't see him signed up yet, but Ted Lowendick, Nick McLaughlin, Kwok Nin, Juan Malagon, Michael Terrafino, all the usual cast of characters are going to be back. So if you want to race against the people who are on your screen right now, you've got the chance to do so. Signups are open.
And Guillaume Levaillec is amongst those indicating that he's already saying he's in Joey. In fact, based on the queue, here's the reason that's significant. One of the top drivers from Canada, also a part of the Advanced Motorsports stable over the years.
That would be pretty crazy because Guillaume Levesque, he was a champion in the GT3 Sprint Series a couple of seasons ago and moved up to the pro levels of iRacing because of that.
Yeah.
He essentially said, I've had enough of racing at the league level. I got to take a jump up for a moment, Justin. And look what he's done with Advanced Motorsports. Like you say, he's been fantastic, and maybe stepping down for a little bit more competition would be great for him. I'd be happy to see him back.
Yeah, and I will note this once again. The reason I say Levaillec to that is I asked him, how do you pronounce your name before the Red Bull Ring Masters a few years ago? He said Levaillec.
It's French Canadian, Justin. So I got to let you take that because you got the Canadian in your system. You're able to do that. But we've got some Wi-Fi trouble here. Ted Lowendick kind of blinking in and out of existence here between Juan Malagon and Sean Dickinson. He was worried about that a couple weeks ago. Had some internet troubles during the 24 hours of Spa as well. Hopefully the technology doesn't come to bite him here because this is a great race so far.
Yeah, nice and steady, nice and in a line. Now it's the matter of if Ted Lowendick continuing to save, or does he shoot along to make the pass eventually? We still have at least half the race to go. That's the most difficult.
Hearing from Darian Roy in the chat as well. Another French Canadian. He says Levaillec now. So we may have to we're gonna have to study up on that next season, Justin, because if he's back, we gotta nail it. He says Giga Justin though, so I think you're correct. It's Levaillec. I think you're right.
Levaillec. I asked about it 3 times. I remember.
Oh. Michael Terrafino's in a little bit of trouble. He's fallen out of second place. I think one mistake, maybe one slowdown, has dropped him from second down to P6. The race of Terrafino's life, it's starting to bobble a little bit. I think with a slowdown through the 4 chicanes.
Yeah, that's another killer when it comes to that. Arnaud Genest also in the midst of a slowdown. And there it is right there. Yes, before he even got to the 4 chicanes, the Porsche curves, and that run through that section, a little bit too much of the curving, having to back out. He's still in the draft. That's the bright side because it isn't as significant compared to the 4 chicane cut.
Now suddenly the battle for third gets a little bit spicier. Porsche versus Porsche now. Olivier versus Trepanier, and can't count out Diego Morales in 4th either. That Ferrari is still there. He is still hunting these two down. He's been kind of at the back of the train so far, but remember back to the GT3 fixed race earlier tonight, it was the drivers 4th and 5th in line who did the best on fuel strategy. Diego Morales could be sitting very well here once the pit stops roll around in a couple minutes' time.
Yeah, I've been liking this from Olivier, just running patient, running solid. There's the lift and the coast a little bit. Play on the strat. Now just don't do it on the 20-second mark again. As long as your fuel man actually remembers to put fuel in the car, you're in a good spot. I don't think that's going to happen again, but things have happened several times here.
Yeah. Remember back to Watkins Glen's season opener in this series, Carl Modoff was leading the race with 2 corners to go and ran out of fuel. It has certainly happened in this series, and it could very well happen again. Nobody is too good for a fuel mistake. But they all hope they are. They all hope they've got crew chiefs on the box. We know some drivers do have strategists here in this series who do all that for them. We know some of them have crew chief apps that do it for them. And we know some of them just calculate it in their own heads. Either way, everybody's hunting for that fuel number, though.
I find it funny. Oh, I think never mind. Ted Lowendick nearly blinked out of existence, and it's cost him time because he's now leading the pack, so that's not going to be good. But I was about to say, find it funny that it's kind of turned into the, how do you pronounce Guillaume Levaillec's name? Quick question. Am I saying an S in that?
I was saying an S in that. I think we're both wrong in one way, because I'm saying it with an S. I got to stop doing that. I think you've had one extra syllable, but that's the problem with these French-Canadian names, the PRL. I've got to get better at this, because Jerome Berthiaume, the organizer and the owner of the PRL, he is so good at pronouncing all these names. He's got to give me a master class here. I need Jerome to come into my ear, tell me every single one of these names, from Darian Roy to Guillaume to Vincent Trepanier. I need some help, Justin. I'm not Canadian enough.
Well, on that mark, I think still we're about to see the window open for the pit stops in at least the next lap. But it's the matter of who elects to just split it up in half, who keeps it simple, who plays it the long game when it comes to this race tonight. I think it's still going to be a strat where somebody needs to figure out how to get to Jasir, because 4 seconds is excessive at this track to be up at this point. Unless you are in the race that no longer exists in any way, shape, or form, let's pretend I didn't say that type of thing.
I don't know what you're talking about, Justin. I've never heard of that race. I have heard of Ethan Bass, though, here in P5.
Are you talking about the race in the parking lot of the KFC that Will Vincent loves to talk about?
Something like that. That sounds kind of familiar. It's starting to ring a little bit of a bell. We got our first pit stop, though. Look, some drivers peeling off. Michael Terrafino, I believe, peeling off. Dominic Olivier on pit lane. I think Diego Morales stays out. It's a debate between the drivers, but right before we hit the halfway point, it's Olivier and Terrafino in.
And it was a matter of when, as we talked about, just keeping it simple. Right up the middle, halfway. Ryan Punchtail doing the same thing right now. It feels like it's been forever since we've even mentioned Ryan Punchtail's name, since the days of the M battle for the championship where he was a contender back then.
Rubbing salt in the wound there, Justin. You know who Ryan Pucktel beat in that championship in F3 AM when he won that championship? That was me, but he deserved it because I was not a race winning contender in that series. And Ryan Pucktel was very, very fast, and in this series as well, in GT3, he's been an absolutely phenomenal contender. Has been on the podium before, has had some great results. He's been hunting to get back to that form this season, though, with some team separation. Was with SimCity Racing, was not with SimCity Racing. He's got some ambitions for next season, I think, with a little bit more consistency, and we'll see what Ryan Pucktel can get up to next season.
Yeah, it's been solid for him tonight, to say the least, in the mid-pack, but I'm still going to say this one more time. Jasir is basically having a rocket ship right now, because he is at least a second quicker than everybody else. And I think that's something that's going over everything right now is how?
That's a very good question. How, indeed. And that's a question we tend to ask a lot of Beckham Jasir. When he's on it, he is on it like nobody we've ever seen. We ride on board with Carl Modoff here back in 5th. He's one of those drivers who we've asked that question of before, whether it's in GT3, whether it's in prototypes, whatever he's driving on iRacing. He is ridiculously fast. But there's been a change of the guard in some of these races this season. Beckham Jasir has been the guy who's been absolutely unbeatable.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened before. A couple seasons ago specifically, Jasir. Tracks like Barber that come to mind. He was absolutely dominant in some of those circuits. Solid in the corners, but for Modoff, he's been solid in just about any single type of car you put him in this series. And an organization that's been solid for its existence when racing in the PRL and Delta Sport for a reason. No matter the name, they've been flying quick.
I don't know if I'm having selective memory here, Justin, but I don't remember Carl Modoff's hair being that blonde. I don't know if he's gone to the dye salon recently, but either way, it's looking different. It's Carl Modoff changing up the look and trying to change up the race. But here we go, side by side for P2. Diego Morales around the outside into Indianapolis. What a move for Morales on Vincent Trepanier up to second.
What did I say?
Bass trying to get him as well.
What did I say? If you are looking for a win, you have nothing to lose. May as well push. As long as it sees you still have a solid spot again, just push without burning up all your gas. I'm more surprised than the Ford. If you're Trepanier, I wonder what's going through his mind here. Now he's got a drafting partner at least to tow off of for now.
To all of you watching at home, do not be alarmed. That's not Joe Peak down there on the camera. That is Vincent Trepanier. They look very, very much alike, but Vincent Trepanier, still the bus driver, doing a great job on the podium here and still outscoring one of his championship rivals, Karl Modov. Still picking up a couple of points here. But he's falling, and right now, he's got to start thinking about pit stops. We saw a few takers on the previous lap. Does everybody come in this time? I'm looking up the road to Beckham Jasir. Is this his pit lap? Is this Diego Morales' pit lap? We've got a few more moments to see. It is Diego time. It's Vincent Trepanier in. It's Bass in. It's Modov in. It's Jasir in. Everybody's in with 16 minutes to go.
And nicely done on the pit entry. No major speeding in terms of the front runners. Now, the number for fuel, I'm very curious about when it comes to Jasir. Did he underfuel the car, maybe, to get a lighter car? I'm not quite sure. Otherwise, I'm not sure how you are quicker than anybody else without any draft unless you have that much confidence and grip when it comes to your setup in terms of the downforce levels and the speed. We'll have to keep an eye on this number.
Is Beckham Jasir just built different, or has he been saving fuel? Jasir, Trepanier, Ovando, Morales all slotting in. Remember, 13 seconds was the number for Ray Dominguez back in the fixed race. 16.6 seconds for Beckham Jasir in the box. And look to the back of everybody else. Vincent Trepanier, about 15 seconds. Diego Morales, 16 seconds. It's pretty similar all throughout the field. Nobody's been able to beat Beckham Jasir in terms of fuel saving.
And it's pretty simple again. If you're in a spot where the max capacity is 50%, but you also have it as an open set, you can adjust technically your fuel entry mark, for example. Almost wondering again, the thought was get the fuel to only where you need about 25 minutes. Straight up, just 25 minutes. Have it dialed in knowing you need a 5 laps per and about just 15 minutes to get on the clock. Keep it simple. And the others may have played a little bit extra careful because of the size of this racetrack. Jasir, I'm wondering if with the aggressive route, because now I don't know if there's a chance to catch him because the fact that he's dead even on everybody else's delta.
Karl Modov, Michael Terrafino, two drivers with very difficult and different tails here. Michael Terrafino on recovery after a slowdown got him off the podium. He's trying to get back in the top 5, and he pulls to the outside of Karl Modov into the first chicane. Has to slot back in line, though. Can't outbrake the Porsche.
Nicely done when it comes to Modov. He's been trying to position himself all race to get up here. He did underfuel the car a bit. 15 seconds flat in the pit delta estimate. So he just took a little bit less, Joey, to be able to get that position, get himself leapfrogged a bit. Needed to be in the heart of the pack and away from the battles that plagued him in the early going.
One of the biggest winners in all of that, you see in P2 at the head of your screen, Dominic Olivier up into second. Made up a few spots. He didn't necessarily save more fuel than any of his rivals, but he just had a great run through the lane, had a great exit, and he went from 4th to 2nd in one pit cycle. Dom Olivier, the race winner from last week. It's going to be tough to win this week, but he's looking for 2nd. But look at Ethan Bass in the Ford trying to get 6th back from Michael Terrafino. It's a battle of straight line speed. It's Ford versus BMW. Not quite like that blockbuster movie from a few years ago. It's going to be a blockbuster movie into the Mulsanne corner, though, as Terrafino's later on the brakes.
Oh, and the Ford getting a little bit dicey. This is one of the best runs Ethan Bass has had throughout this campaign. And he's proven that when you put him on the right track, say a Silverstone, a track in the French countryside, anything like that, it can be quick. Not as quick as the Porsches, but it can be quick.
Ethan Bass is a very quick Scotsman. You got to say that much about him. And Vincent Trepanier got back by Dominic Olivier, but he's losing the spot again. Olivier gets to his inside into Indianapolis. And Dominic Olivier takes 2nd back after losing it a moment ago. It's back and forth for 2nd, 3rd, and Diego Morales in 4th says, I want my 2nd back too.
Not so easy to do, though, in the midst of this, especially with aggression levels picking up. It's going to take him at least half a lap to be able to regather things. He's not looking good behind him, though, because you see that rear view cam? Where did Carlo go? Well, Ethan Bass just leapfrogged him, and now it's a Ford in the backdrop for the chicanes.
I think we need to look behind Diego Morales here because I'm confused. I think that's a graphical anomaly because Bass was behind Modoff in terms of timing, but he's ahead of him now in track position as that's updated. Ethan Bass up into the top 5 again. A guy who has not been at the top of the podium in the PRL before, passing the winningest driver in PRL GT3 history. This is like an alternate universe Le Mans, and it's beautiful to see. Everybody's got a shot for the top 5 here.
That's the beauty of drafts sometimes. It throws anybody with a clean race car into the conversation in theory. So long as you know how to make the corners when it comes to this track. Otherwise, cancel that thought process. Oh, look, it's Snake O'Clock.
TikTok, it's Snake O'Clock. All 3 of these drivers, or at least 2 of these drivers, by the way, signed up for next season. Ethan Bass will be back. I don't know if he's going to stick with the Ford. Honestly, as much as I love the Ford, Justin, this run for Ethan Bass makes me think I kind of want to see him in whatever the dominant car is next season. I want to see him fighting for top 10s consistently. He may be having a lot of fun in this Ford, and that is what he comes to the PRL to do. He comes to have fun. But I'd love to see Ethan Bass fighting more consistently in a car that can consistently fight.
Some say it's for the memes, some say it's for the fun, some say it's for the fish. In the case of the thought process when it comes to Terrafino's bumper at one point. But in all seriousness, it's really down to what you prefer as a driver in a lot of the cases. And if you've never really driven with the Porsche, it's hard to do. Here comes the BMW Terrafino, comfortable in the BMW for reference.
Looking like a Greenwich, Connecticut parking lot here. A Ford GT versus a Porsche versus a BMW. Terrafino later on the brakes than Karl Modoff into the first chicane. And Terrafino gets by Modoff as well. It's been a fantastic race for Modoff, or for Terrafino rather, and it's been the fall of Modoff back to 7th.
Nicely done in terms of the slipstream, but again, this is where it gets up for grabs on the passback.
It's not a tandem, it's a trandom. It's 3 cars, nose to tail here, and Terrafino trying to get the 2-for-1 special with a little bit of a bump draft from Karl Modoff down the backstretch into the second chicane. Michael Terrafino takes P5 back, and Ethan Bass tries to hold off Karl Modoff as he jumps the curbs.
Oh, and this is getting a little bit aggressive in terms of how this is going. I don't blame Modoff, though. He needs to make sure he's in a good spot in terms of the points here. And you talked about the drop in the factor. You talked about the penalties in the factor. Trepanier needing all the points he can to chip away. Modoff wanting to limit any damage when it comes to not being in his draft.
Diego Morales, by the way, got by Vincent Trepanier a little bit further ahead, and that has allowed these 2 battles to close down to each other on the track. The battle for 3rd may very soon include Michael Terrafino and Ethan Bass and Karl Modoff, as everything starts to condense here in the final laps of the race. It's a little bit of a blink for Diego Morales in 3rd. He's hoping that he doesn't get disconnected through powers out of his control, and Ethan Bass is hoping that he can get by Michael Terrafino. That purple Ford rather, peaks to the inside. I'm getting my alliteration mixed up here as he was going very aggressive. Has to slot back in line though and think about a smarter place to make that move.
Yeah, and that's the tough part. Again, picking the right spot, picking the right window. If you pick the wrong window, guess what? You end up having to regather for at least a quarter of the lap. This is the spot where they've gone back and forth like crazy, though. And it's been made clear with how Ethan Bass made a pass earlier. It's game on if you open up the door. Modoff just not quick enough to fully slingshot by.
He is struggling. He might have the fastest lap of the race, but he has not quite been the fastest Karl Modoff we've seen all season. He's still going to be your championship leader with the way the math works out right now. He's still going to have a strong gap to Vincent Trepanier, about 9 points if my calculations are correct. Maybe only maybe 10 points with that fastest lap. But he's putting the pressure on Ethan Bass. You saw a big slide there out of the Bassmaster, out of the Corvette curves, and Karl Modoff is putting the pressure on him. He's swerving all over the place, hoping he can force Bass into a mistake.
Yeah, not so simple. And again, it's kind of showing the hand. He's getting frustrated a little bit. Just a little bit. There's the run that he's been trying to set up, though. I'm surprised he didn't take the move, though, just going to the bumper instead.
Into the Dunlop curve, turn 1. Is Modoff gonna try something different here? He's not quite got the downforce level of Ethan Bass, I think. Through that first corner, wasn't able to stick with him, and then through the Dunlop chicane, he's still just stuck to the back of him. He can't make the move, and then I think once they get onto the back stretch, once they get onto the Mulsanne straight, he can't He can't keep up with him in a straight line. It's got to be eternally frustrating for Karl Modov right now.
I'm almost wondering if he's thinking of what Terrafino's doing here, because Terrafino's now become the bridge. He's not within a second, per se, of Trepanier, but he's within the very edge of drafting range we've seen based on the evidence tonight. And knowing that if he makes the move and goes side by side of the corner, he loses potentially that run Terrafino can pick up, and Terrafino runs away from them. I'm wondering if it's the big picture call here.
And look who's behind. Darian Roy in our chat points out that Boris Ovando is not out of this battle. He's done a great job of recovering after some early trouble, and he has been chasing down this Terrafino-Bas Modov battle. Ovando might still be in championship contention. He might not be out of this.
Yeah, I was really throwing Ovando out of the conversation, really, because of the speed we showcased. It's just a matter of tonight. He's had to come back for the slowdowns, right? And he's got the hardest road in terms of the furthest on back. He needs to pass the 948 realistically, first of all, to chip away at that gap. But second, he needs to find a way somehow to pass the 87.
Oh, little bit of a curb hop there for Karl Modov. Not going to help his exit speed there. And that could put him in danger with Big Boris behind him. The 122 in the draft. He's got to run.
And I'm wondering about something, because somebody just mentioned something that I don't think we noticed too much. Is there a damaged, bent part of Modov's front spoiler?
It is looking like the front splitter's a little bit, it's a little bit curved. We'll see as they come down the straight here. We'll compare it to the nose of Ovando's car. Compare it to the splitter. Look at Modov, the red car, and the 948. Well, we don't quite see it there, but I think there very well could be some damage. It could be a little bit bent from a curb hop, but I'm not sure.
It's very close when it comes to the bend. If there's anything on that front splitter, it can slow you down in terms of that speed, and that can be a difference. The damage can cost you those tenths. That might be part of this. I'm not really noticing it, to be honest, but somebody has to be keeping an eye on this, especially with how it's going here. For Ovando to already close up there, in terms of their difference, in terms of the heights, I've noticed, it looks like Ovando does have a little bit lower of a mark, so it looks like a slightly different configuration on that front.
It is going to be a race against the clock here. Will we take the white flag, or will we take 2 laps to go? With Beckham Jasir in the lead, I think it's going to be 2 laps to go. And has everybody put enough fuel in the cars to make it? Everybody did in the previous race in the fixed series. Hopefully everybody's done the same here in the sprint series. But 2 laps to go at the line, and that's 2 more laps for Terrafino to try and chase down the podium. It's 2 more laps for Karl Modov to make any more spots, and he might get one on Ethan Bass, because he has been struggling out of the final Corvette curve for the last 2 laps.
Yeah, but every single time, Modov has just said, I'm going to go back, retuck in, see if they can get back up to Trepanier before I make the move. This time, not even close enough to make a pass. If anything, he had to back out of it because the sand trap. But here's the play. Terrafino is no longer gaining. In fact, he is losing tons of time. They need to pass Terrafino at this rate.
Ultimate time through the Dunlop chicane. Ethan Bass all over the back. He's got the lights on, even though it is in the middle of the day, trying to shine some light into his competitor's eyes. But he is just not quite good enough through the first sector to stick with Terrafino as close as he wants. He's going to have to wait a few more corners here, down through the S's, into Tertia Rouge. He's hoping for a great exit down the backstretch and hoping to use the grunt of that Ford to do something with Terrafino and get up into the top 5.
Yeah, and it's going to count based on if there's any trouble spots. Yeah, right now they are dead even on the speed, even with the draft effect. That's the more difficult part because of the older car body type when it comes to the iRacing service for that Ford. Just everybody going up the middle, because everyone knows there's that little bit of an advantage by just running on those dotted lines before the braking mark.
Into the first chicane, lots of different lines being taken. You saw Modov and Ovando basically running opposite ends of the track coming into the braking zone. They're all just looking for space. They're looking for ground. They're looking for ways by Ethan Bass, and none of them are doing anything. Ovando very, very close to the back of Karl Modov there, the Precision Racing Esports driver in that silver and blue number 122 in the draft. closing down, not able to do anything though. It's a little bit of a draft train. It's a draft lock like Justin mentioned earlier. If you're Boris Ovando right now, you basically need some mistakes from the drivers up ahead if you want to move forward here.
Yeah, right now, Ethan Bass hasn't really been making mistakes. Terrafino, if anything's making some of the mistakes, and that speed just kind of peaked. Just kind of peaked. They are not closing there. No one's really even dating at all here. That's the more stunning thing of this, right? Looking like we will get the extra lap here. But I think when that extra lap gets underway here, this final time around coming up, that's when I think we go from everyone saving just to make sure they got their numbers in a row here, especially those who might be on that one lap undercut call and then fly. Or Ethan Bass is going to change my entire mind because he's about to make the pass or try to.
Ethan Pass, that's why we're going to call him that from now on. He's all the way to the back of Terrafino. He's giving him a bump draft, basically. He can't find the inside there through that little kink after Mulsanne. He's going to peek to the inside, though, through this faster kink here. You do have to lift a little bit there, though, so sticking a nose to the inside does not work out. Into Indianapolis, Bass basically backing out of it again, but he's got another little bit of a straight here out of Arnage, and we know that Ford has been very, very strong in a straight line. If he gets a shot into the Porsche curves, we know Ethan Bass is going to take it because he knows he's running out of time.
I think that was part of a test, maybe almost. Because if Bass really wanted it, he could have tried it on the left side of the track. But the problem is, I don't know if that would have necessarily worked unless Terrafino let him go. And here's the thing. If Terrafino let him go in that case, Joey, what stops him from trying the same move back? So that's kind of a smart play from Bass.
Through the Porsche curves here, penultimate time. Mistakes need to be at a minimum here, and Ethan Bass has struggled through this very corner. He slid the car every single lap. Does he do it again this time? He's a little bit more controlled this time. Not a great exit, though. That's going to bring Modoff back into contention. It's going to let Terrafino pull away just a little bit as well. Beckham Jasir takes the white flag a few seconds up the road, and Boris Ovando dives it to the inside of Carl Modoff through the Ford chicanes and makes the move.
A little bit of aggression there from Ovando, knowing great chance to make some points up for the championship fight. May as well go. Here's the risk now. They've now lost Bass and Terrafino's draft.
It was very aggressive from a driver who's known for being very aggressive. Boris Ovando could be very much closer in the championship fight right now. Right now, before this race started, Carl Modoff had a 14-point lead over Vincent Trepanier, a 16-point lead over Boris Ovando. That shouldn't be that way. Vincent Trepanier has a 10-point penalty for contact at Road Atlanta. Boris Ovando has a 10-point penalty for contact at Watkins Glen. It could be much closer, but a little bit of aggression from those two drivers, some mistakes and some contact has made their job much more difficult, and they're just trying to minimize those losses here to have one more shot at Modoff with one more race to go.
Keep in mind, though, the battles still aren't over. Few moments ago, Sean Dickinson retired from the race due to an incident, so Ted Lowendick winning that battle that we talked about earlier. But it's still not over when it comes to the amazing adventures, because Malagon wants to try and turn into a not as amazing adventure inside the top half.
He's trying to make it a mediocre adventure. We do have Ted Lowendick as an in-race reporter, so we'll drag him in here for one word. Ted, give us one word.
I might run out of fuel.
That was like 5 words, but that's good. Ted Lowendick might just run out of fuel in this battle with Juan Malagon. I think that's exactly what Juan wanted to hear.
Well, first of all, you pick an interesting time for that. 2, if you're Ted, why would you tell your competitors that? Because now they all want to go.
Juan Malagon to Ted's outside. Side by side into the second chicane. That's going to get difficult, but we got to look up forward here after this battle ends because Vincent Trepanier has held off Diego Morales, but Ethan Bass is going to get one more shot. Juan Malagon does get by Ted Lowendick into the second chicane. Well done there by him. But this is the battle for the podium now. Diego Morales has fallen off, and Ethan Bass a little bit further back has one more shot on Michael Terrafino for P5. Lots of positions yet to be resolved here, and Bass is running out of chances, but there's a bad exit from Terrafino in the BMW. Look for Bass in that purple Ford GT to peek to the inside.
Oh, here he goes. This is the move he tried before. You see Bass in the backdrop making the pass attempt. Remember, he wanted to wait for this to make sure it was complete, and Terrafino couldn't get it back. There they go in the backdrop.
Here he comes to the outside of Michael Terrafino. Terrafino in that BMW hanging tough though in a straight line, but Ethan Bass around the outside of the fastest corner of the track makes the move and gets P5 into Indianapolis. Ethan Bass's best finish of the season so far has been 11th, and this has been the best race of Ethan Bass's PRL career in P5. But we've got to go a little bit further ahead because Beckham Jasir, putting one of the Unit Sim Sports drivers one lap down, has been absolutely dominant so far tonight. We've had battles all throughout the field, but we haven't had a battle for the lead because Beckham Jasir, ever since that pole, has been running away and never looking back. He's had speed like nobody else. He's got the pole. He's got the fastest lap. He's got every single lap led. It is going to be a grand slam for Beckham Jasir, and he might just have an outside chance of the championship. He's made points up on Trepanier. With Karl Modoff in 8th, he's made up a ton of points on him. Through the Ford chicanes for the final time. Once again, for the second time this season, it is going to be Beckham Jasir wins again and wins at Le Mans.
Absolute domination. What can you really say? Jasir he just outright dominated the field tonight. But Terrafino, right, causing a little bit of a bundle off, Modoff and company not able to take advantage. Still in ninth place run.
Spot, Justin. Modoff lost a spot to Fernando Jaquez and almost lost another one to Ryan O'Connor. The championship leader is going to hold on to his championship lead, but he's out of fuel across the line. That's why he lost that spot.
That, and there were a flurry of slowdowns. I was about to say Terrafino got a slowdown. Modoff, I think, had to clutch and coast to get to the finish line.
Did Modoff didn't make it across the line ahead of Ryan O'Connor. He fell to 10th, actually. Did any of those guys have a slowdown, or were they able to serve it before the line?
That's a good question. I will have to wait and see how things get organized because of how quick it would have been at the line. That's not a lot of time to be able to clear any slowdown. Terrafino barely cleared it for the final corner.
That could be pretty bad for Karl Modoff if he did have a slowdown there and wasn't able to serve it before the line. That could put him at the end of the field. We're going to have to wait for every single driver to cross the line to see if any penalties come through. And that's going to be quite a while because we got a lot of drivers still ready to cross the line. Noah Anderson down in 29th. Haven't mentioned him much tonight, but he's going to bring it to the finish in the Upfront Motorsports Porsche. Hops the curb for good measure, but he's going to finish.
And that's the key word. He finished. And just a couple other drivers having some rough runs tonight. One of the No Lobos cars, Joseph Carnes, just behind him for reference. Matt Sheriff started off the race with early troubles as well, with slowdowns to the 43. But for the most part, just 2 DNFs out of 35. Not bad.
Indeed, and that was the last driver to cross the line, so Karl Modoff does hang on to P10, but he is not going to be happy with that. Up front, though, it was Beckham Jasir wins for the second time this season, ahead of Dominic Olivier and Vincent Trepanier at the end part of the podium. Still P3, still making up a bunch of points on Karl Modoff. That's going to be like a 5-point gap coming into the championship finale, and that is going to be very, very exciting at Phillip Island next week. Diego Morales in the Ferrari, great run for him just off the podium, and Ethan Bass, the Bassmaster, P5 in the Ford, his best run ever in the PRL. He's going to be very, very happy. Michael Terrafino, his best result in the PRL as well in P6. Then Boris Ovando keeping himself alive in the championship as well next week in P7. Fernando Jaquez, P8. Ryan O'Connor. What a week for drivers having their best result in the PRL. Ryan O'Connor joins that fray as well in P9. And Karl Modoff retains the championship lead, but loses quite a bit of his gap. Jeremy Gonsalves, P11 ahead of Juan Malagan. Simon Thiriot up a bunch of spots in P13. Ted Lowendick stays P14. Chris Benin and Genet down to P17. And we didn't mention Nick McLaughlin once in this race, Justin, but he made up, by my count, 18 spots from 36 on the grid. That's Nick McLaughlin's best race of the season, ahead of Justin Delano and Kevin Simpson. We're still not to the drivers who were up to 1 minute behind the leader. Joshua Spears within a minute of the lead, and then Bartley, Desjardins, Steffi, Breton, Torchio, Fonseca, Puctel, Anderson, and Carnes brought us down to the end of the top 30. Remember, Torchio got into some trouble with a slowdown earlier on. He could have been in the top 10. Matt Scherf and Faraz Nasser brought us to the end of the lead lap, and then we get into the used car lot of some drivers who had heavy damage. It was a very, very small list of attrition in this race. David Mendonça, Sean Dickinson, and Philippe Magnan went multiple laps down, or just 1 lap down in Mendonça and Dickinson's case. But that was a race at Le Mans, a funky field, some drivers having their best runs ever, and maybe Beckham Jasir, your race winner, having his best run ever as well. Beckham, 7.5 seconds at the line over Dominic Olivier. Your best run in the PRL, in my opinion. What made you so strong around this place today?
I'm not sure. I mean, for sure it has to be the amount of laps I have here. Strange though, I thought I wouldn't have won by this much. I knew I would have been up in the front for sure in the top 3. I only did 1 lap of practice, but I have felt good with that. Got pole without draft. I think it was by 3/10, and then at the start of the race, got a gap until Moson like about a second. So from there, I just kept pulling away. Entering Porsche curves, it was like half a second every lap. So from there, I just kept going and going and going, and managed to get 7 seconds.
It's the championship finale next week. It's going to be difficult in the championship with how many points back you were from this week, but you will be in mathematical contention, and you've made up some points on Karl Modov this week. How do you approach that championship finale, knowing that it is possible, but it's going to take some luck and it's going to take a win?
Yeah, for sure. Got to do quite a bit of preparation. Just got to honestly, during the race, just make sure how I'm looking like in the points, and for sure just try to get as much as points as I can in the next round.
Well, Beck, congrats on yet another win this season. Your most dominant one yet. We'll see you in the championship finale next week.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Beckham Jasir coming home with the win, and I hope he's a 100 Gex fan so he gets the Beck thing, but you never know. Either way, Dominic Olivier is up next, and he's with Justin Prince.
Yes, indeed, Dominic, first things first. What's going through your mind after a solid run here tonight?
That was tough, man. I was hoping to do a better job in qualifying so I could try and get a better start and chase down Beckham. Feel like he was lightning quick, a little bit too fast for me, but if I had started behind him, maybe I had a shot, but coulda, shoulda, woulda, screwed up qualifying and had to really resort to some serious strategic tactics, saving fuel and pitting early, and trying some cheeky moves on Vincent to get him out of my draft.
Such as?
Just had to, lift and save, pitted a lap early, should have gone more aggressive on fuel, evidently. Then when I made a mistake and he battled me, I knew I was faster in the Porsche curves area, so I tried to get a good run out of the corner before that, and I managed to gap him, and that paid off.
Well, in turn, after tonight, one more round on the campaign. What's that focus like, knowing the conversation for the title, knowing the team complexions? What's kind of your approach for the final race?
The final race, going for the win. Was hoping for the win here, but came up just short, and Beckham did a hell of a job. And I know he's also in the title fight as well, not too far away. I think my team helped me out today and got Karl, a couple positions down. Vincent, on the other hand, it's gonna be tough to beat him, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, congrats once again on the second place run tonight.
Thank you.
Dominic Olivier, P2 tonight. P3 going the way. Vincent Trepanier, a solid run tonight. Joey, rather, top 5.
Indeed. Vincent Trepanier. We've got to talk about this battle with Diego Morales today, though. That Ferrari was very, very quick in a straight line. It was you who got him on the podium, though.
Yeah. I think Diego want to help me to come back with on Dominic Olivier, but Dominic was too fast, and I want to say Beckham Jasir. Wow, what a pace, man, tonight. Yep.
Fantastic pace. We have to talk about the championship next week. Phillip Island, with Karl Modov having a bad race tonight, you're going to be very, very close to him. I think it's going to be about 5 points maybe in the championship, 5 or 6 points. How do you approach next week, knowing that championship is still very possible?
I hope. I will try my best. I think we have to work on the magic setup with all my teammates, so we will work on that. But yep, it's going to be a very tough battle with Modov. Yep.
Well, Vincent, congrats on yet another podium this week, and we will see you in that championship finale next week.
Yep, thank you, guys.
Vincent Trepanier, the bus driver himself, coming home on the podium this week. We'll get a short chat with one other driver before we leave, though, because if you drive a Ford into the top 5 in this series, you deserve to get a little bit of a chat. Ethan Bass, I'm calling you the Bassmaster from now on. How was that Ford so quick tonight?
Ford is quick because I had to drive the socks off of it.
It was pretty fantastic. I mean, I'm looking forward to next season now because you've shown some great pace tonight. Are you going to stick with Ford next season? Are you going to keep with the play, or are you going to drive another car and maybe compete more regularly with the pace?
I think that will be dependent on what the team wants to be doing with other commitments. It potentially is potentially the big last hurrah, big final proper best result I will ever get in that car.
Well, Mr. Bassmaster, it's good to finally see you in the top 5 in this car. You know we're all fans of the Ford here at RaceSpot. We'll see you next week at Phillip Island.
Yeah, Phillip Island's a nice track. Hopefully that should be good fun. And thanks very, very much, lads. This has been an amazing season.
Ethan Bass, he's going to be studying up on the ways of the Phillip Island. But that's going to be it for us tonight, Justin. What a bunch of stories that ended up with a championship battle separated by single digits of points coming into Phillip Island next week. Modolf and Trepanier, the two titans of PRL GT3 racing, battling for the championship at the top, with Boris Ovando, Dominic Olivier, and Beckham Jasir also in mathematical contention. That's going to be a crazy finale.
It's going to be an intense finale because that track, plenty of chances for drivers to go off into the grass, obviously, but plenty of chances for drivers to take advantage of their skills, because the main thing is it's a driver intensive track in the corners. If you know how to enter corners, guess what? You have a chance to conquer the island that's named Phillip.
A championship finale down under in Australia in Phillip Island next week. It's going to be mathematically in contention in the GT3 Fix series as well. Can Aero Urexoy hang on, or can maybe Greg Doucette get him into some trouble and run away with the shock championship, or Ray Dominguez for that matter? We have no idea, but we are looking so much forward to next week with 2 championship battles. We were thankful for a great race tonight, and we're thankful that even more PRL action's coming up tomorrow night with the NASCAR Truck Series and the NASCAR Xfinity Series. But for now, I've been Joey Tebbin, Justin Prince has been Justin Prince, our producer has been Hugo Luis, and until we see you next time, so long.